for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 6. It's dark, very dark. There's not much going on out there. There's not much news this morning. So we've got an idea this morning that we want you to share with us in our kind of attempt to try and keep ourselves jolly in the midst of all of this madness that's going on. Front pages are all very, very different. Kemi Badenoch made a speech yesterday in Conservative Party conference. Nobody really cares, except the Daily Mail says Kemi fires up the Tories with a pledge to scrap hated stamp duty. Yeah, well, really? Do you? I mean, you can scrap whatever you want. You might as well scrap gravity if you're Kemi Badenoch, because nobody really cares what you do, because you're not going to get into power anytime soon to do anything. Case challenges Starmer over China. This is the former head of the civil service. Questions the Prime Minister's explanation for why the trial collapsed. That's the story about the Chinese spy scenario. Front page of the Times, Badenoch builds case to abolish stamp duty. Again, I don't care. Front page of the iPaper, Badenoch's move to axe stamp duty piles pressure on Reeves's budget. That's the only thing that really is interesting, because it means that, you know, because of what Kemi Badenoch is saying, it may well be that Rachel Reeves, remember her, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, she may well have to do something about stamp duty, because, quite frankly, her increase of stamp duty has caused the property market to collapse. There's lots of other stories as well to talk about. The AI bubble is at risk of bursting, says the Bank of England. That's on the front page of The Guardian. Ministers commit to overhaul of licensing laws in push and go. You can always tell when there's not really much going on, when all the papers have got different headlines, basically. The Sun has got, I want Maddie back, calling me mum. And that's, of course, Kate McCann saying that what she would love to see is her daughter coming back to her, because there's apparently an alleged stalker who's going around apparently insisting that she's actually Madeleine McCann, which is kind of a weird story. Anyway, we're not going to do any of that, right? Here's what we're going to do. Chloe Dobbs is here with me. Chloe, very good morning to you.
Morning.
We're going to focus for you on Keir Starmer, because Keir Starmer's out in India at the moment, and we've discovered, thanks to our brilliant production team, led by Christian Mitchell, we are going to say This is a piece of video that you must see. We've got a piece of video that you may not have seen before. It's so funny that we're going to play it over and over and over again. And it's Keir Starmer walking in the woods, right, with a secret admirer. I'm not going to say any more. I'm not going to tell you exactly who it is. I'm going to wait and see whether you can guess who that person might be. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. I want to hear from you. There's many stories around this morning, one of which, of course, is about anti-Semitic doctors. Right, that's one story. There's another one about Islamic terror suspects who planned a massacre, who are currently in court. We can't talk too much about them because we don't want to influence their thing. We've also got a possible hostage release going on in Israel because it looks as though Donald Trump's peace plan may well be working. But we'll also be talking about illegal migrants as well. But for the most of it, it's just going to be Keir Starmer walking in the woods with a mystery admirer. It's a great story. I've got to set the scene, right? Have we got a scene setter? All right, here we go. A scene setter. Here's Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, walking in the woods.
How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you? Are we good?
Thanks for doing this, then.
No
really
problem
good.
at all. No, it's great to see you. And
do you know this part of the world at all?
no, and I was thinking, I've obviously just driven here today. I was thinking, you either go to Wales, you either go to the Lake District, or you go to Blackpool. I went to Blackpool, but I've never been. How did you find this place?
So my parents brought us here every single year when we were growing up. They love the Lake District.
Yeah.
They went on the honeymoon there, and so I've been here so many times.
So there's Keir Starmer with our old friend Gary Neville in the woods, apparently just staggering around fighting. Who knew that they were going to meet each other? Sorry, Chloe, I know this sounds completely mad. There's no news at all, right? It says Keir Starmer, no donkeys involved, right? He hasn't brought any donkeys with him. He hasn't brought the donkeys that he bought for his parents with him.
That's
he
a
just
shame.
likes. He says they used to.
I really want to know what happened to the donkeys.
Yeah, I know.
Where are they? Are they still alive?
I don't know, but they used to go. Apparently, him and his parents used to go to the Lake District all the time, even though his mother was very ill, apparently, and his dad was a tool maker, so he had to obviously take some time off from running the tool making factory.
Is he just trying to show that he occasionally leaves London?
Yeah.
And he's not completely out of touch with the country?
Right.
Well, I'm not sure how many constituents there are to speak to in the wilderness.
There's nobody to speak to.
Other than Gary Neville.
Also, everybody knows. And imagine going into the woods and by chance running into Gary Neville.
Oh.
Isn't that lucky?
Yeah, they're both
so fortunate.
Coincidentally all mic'd up and ready for it.
Yeah, and all ready for it. And Gary Neville there going, yeah, you come here often. I mean, it's like some kind of gay, fantasy, isn't it?
It's so...
Sorry. I mean, nothing to do with me. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care. Just it just seems a bit weird.
Yes, it's very strange. And
then I met this man in the woods.
I mean, this clip is from before the general election.
Yeah.
He liked to put out these bromance heart-to-heart videos. He did one with Sadiq Khan where they sat down on the sofa together and said, "Oh, isn't Islamophobia so terrible? Of course we must clamp down on Islamophobia."
Oh, we must. Yeah, it's got to do that.
So he did one with Sadiq Khan, and he's done one with Gary Neville, and for some reason a lot of us haven't seen this one.
Well, don't worry, we've got loads more. Like, let's have another look at the bromance between Gaza and Keir.
The country are desperately disappointed, just generally, in politicians. They quite often use language like they're all the same, two cheeks of the same backside. How do you change that? Because that is something that's been set now for quite a few years.
Action, not words. I don't think people are going to believe that politics has changed until they see it has changed. The first thing is returning politics to service. It's a public service. You're here to serve the country.
It's a public service. You're here to serve the country. This is all before he got elected, by the way.
I know.
It's so wooden, isn't it? It's like, Mr. Men go to the woods together. Here's Mr. Really Straight, and here's Mr. Footballer. It's about public service.
Yeah, I'm still not entirely convinced that Keir Starmer is a human. I think he's some sort of puppet
droid.
Or some AI robot, because I've yet to see an ounce of personality come out.
Except without the charm.
Yeah.
I mean, C-3PO was quite funny. He's not funny.
No, he doesn't have an ounce of charm in him. I mean, I would probably struggle to.
Can you imagine being his? I mean, I don't wish to castigate you as a woman, right? But can you imagine being his wife and sitting down for dinner?
I don't think there'd be much sex appeal now.
No. How did he ever even find a woman that was willing to marry him?
I know. I mean, remember when... And also, I mean, remember... It's like a segue.
Would you like to go out for a drink? No.
Remember the Matt Hancock COVID romance, and all of us just thought, how on earth is he getting any?
Yeah, but
he's so weird.
Yeah, but at least Matt Hancock is sort of slightly, I don't know, he's a bit of a scoundrel.
He's got a bit more personality than Keir Starmer.
You know, he's a cheat. He's a cheat. He's a scumbag. You know, he doesn't really care about anybody else. So, you know, some women find that appealing. But with Starmer, he's got nothing. There's literally nothing. You're kind of going, would like you to see my collection of books about railways or something, you know? Come back to my place and have a look at my collection of books. You wouldn't, would you? You just wouldn't.
No. And sometimes you go for the weird nerdy guy.
Yeah.
He's either got brains or money, and I'm not sure he's got that much
He's
of either.
got neither. No, that's the thing.
I mean, you might have a few freebies from Lord Ali, and you might get a few free concert tickets.
I've got some new sunglasses I can show you. Went to some to Lord Ali. All right, more from the walk in the woods. I don't know why we're doing this. It just seems like the right thing to do because there's no news, right? Literally no news. Here we are, the part 3 of Keir Starmer and Gary Neville in the woods together.
Because you only came into politics 9 years ago, and you're actually in a position now whereby you could, in a few weeks, be in the top position in the country. How has that happened?
Well, a lot has happened in that time. We lost our way as a party when we got too out of kilter, if you like, with working people and what they really care about. We had to change all that, bring the party back and put itself in a position to win an election. For me, it's been about duty. What are the guiding principles? In our case, country first, party second, so that was a choice for staff.
Yeah.
Are you making this decision based on what matters to the country, or are you making this based on what you think is going to matter to the party? For the second, I'm not interested.
Yeah, country first, party second.
It's not aged well, has it?
No, it hasn't really
And we've got more clips to see where the list goes on
a show in the woods.
Broken promises. Remember, he started out saying, "Oh, it's all about action, not words." What action have you taken in the past year? Anything?
Yeah.
I mean, the boat crossings are going up, the economy is crashing, and the list goes on. They're not building any homes. The planning approvals are at a 13-year low, apparently. What
economy
have you taken,
the
economy? It is all words and no action.
The economy is in the toilet, right? Let's not forget. Digital ID, which I want to bring up, is in the front page of the Telegraph today. Digital ID, which he didn't even mention in his speech, the finishing speech at Labour Party conference. Front page of the Telegraph today says digital ID cards are set to be used to access tax records under Sir Keir Starmer's plans to embed the technology into everyday life. And he's talking about how fantastic it's going to be with digital ID, which nobody wants, by the way. You know, when he started it, people were 35% in favour of it. By the time he'd finished talking, they were minus 14% against it.
And that shows how terrible of a communicator he is.
But apparently,
it's so clear that this has absolutely nothing to do with illegal migration.
No,
they are
not.
I am waiting with ears open for somebody to make a good argument as to how on earth this stops illegal migration. I am yet to hear it. It's very clear that they are bringing it in for other reasons. And now we are seeing that because then they're saying, oh, actually, yeah, maybe it might be to do some other things. Maybe it's going to be used so we can spy on you all the time. We know exactly where you are and what you're spending. And I don't like to be some sort of conspiracy theorist, but I'm yet to hear a good argument as to how this stops illegal migration. They are very clearly using illegal migration as an excuse to bring it in for other reasons.
Right.
And he's just looking at it from an expediency perspective and going, oh, well, it will make it quicker and easier for you to show your ID when you want to buy a bottle of booze or if you want to work. He doesn't quite understand the privacy concerns because he doesn't really have an ideology. He doesn't understand the principles of liberty and privacy. I mean, you saw this in his EU reset negotiations as well. He doesn't understand sovereignty and why people want to be governed by their own rules. He doesn't understand why people voted for Brexit. And so he just looked at a spreadsheet and goes, if we align with all of the EU's food rules and we sign this deal, we'll have this big uptick on our spreadsheet for the economy. He just doesn't... As I said, he's like a robot.
No, it doesn't compute. He
doesn't understand what matters to human beings on a philosophical level. And he's just completely out of touch.
He is. And because all we've ever seen about the ID scenario is him talking about, as you say, illegal migration, as if it's a magic bullet, as if it's going to somehow stop it. But this is the government that we've got. They try to tell us things that we will sort of embed in our brains and go, oh, yeah, digital ID, illegal migration, all good, that will all stop. But it won't. But they sort of give us this idea to put it in our heads as if that's going to be the answer. And it's not the bloody answer.
He thinks that we're stupid.
Yeah.
He thinks that whatever he says, we are going to fall for it. He thinks that he can tell us, oh, we're cracking down on illegal migration because we've deported 35,000 people.
Right.
Do you think we're stupid? We know the 35,000 people didn't come here on boats. We know they're just people who overstayed their visas. They're constantly putting out headlines. Remember when they were all talking about, oh, we've massively cut down the NHS waiting times. You just stopped a few strikes. You haven't fundamentally changed the system. And then this with digital ID, oh, we'll just tell people it's all illegal migration and they'll believe it. No, sorry, we're not thick. We're not going to fall for it.
No, we're really not.
We're living in this world where we've got social media. You get so much scrutiny. You get so much opinion. Everybody is going to rip you to shreds if what you say is not completely well thought through. But he doesn't seem to get it.
He doesn't seem to, and neither do his people. And that's the big worry, I suppose. Is that there's, I was talking to somebody yesterday about the whole problem with PR in Downing Street. 7,000 public relations independent people.
I think Alistair
are
Campbell
working.
is eyeing the job back up.
Yeah.
Did you see that on when the what's she called Steph Driver resigned?
Oh yeah.
The rest, not him on his personal account, but the Rest is Politics account retweeted the news about that and said, oh, if only there was a perfect person for this job, sort of wink, wink. And I'm thinking, is he coming back, Alistair Campbell? Is he going to throw his hat in the ring?
He's too mad. No, I think he's too mad. I don't think it can happen. He's going on his little tour with that other, idiot that he's got. What's his name?
Rory Stewart.
Rory Stewart, yeah, the complete maniac. They're apparently going on tour and selling. People are actually going to buy tickets.
For some reason, their podcast is really...
Yeah. Well, there's that many stupid people in this country who want not to have Brexit, who think that they're the answer.
Well, you have all these liberal idiots who think that if they listen to the Rest is Politics podcast, that they are getting both sides and they're getting balance, because it's supposedly got one Tory and one person from the Labour Party, but actually they're both extremely left-wing, and so you're getting no balance whatsoever.
Yeah, Rory Stewart's
He's barely a Tory.
As much of a Tory as I'm a vegetarian, and I'm literally not a vegetarian. Anyway, listen, we're going to talk some more about digital ID. We're going to talk some more about what's going on with the China case, and also we'll let you know what Kemi Badenoch had to say yesterday, because she's on the front pages a lot about stamp duty this morning. This is Talk.
2,143 migrants across the Channel, hundreds every day. Today we're hearing there's been a brief break, of course, for bad weather across the weekend. Calm conditions have returned to the English Channel, and today we're hearing more than 1,000 migrants have crossed the Channel. This is out of control. We've got a government they're not doing anything. They're just giving us weasel words.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 21 minutes past 6. It is, of course, the early days of Thursday, we should say, Thursday, 9th of October. Not much news going on today, really. Kemi Badenoch's all over some of the front pages talking about scrapping stamp duty. Let's get a voice note from Shane on Keir Starmer in the woods.
Morning, Mike. Shane here in Bournemouth. That video of Starmer and Gary Neville is the most staged pile of rubbish I ever did see. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think Starmer needs to just leave Labour now, and Gary Neville, he just needs to leave the country. Anyway, great show. Cheers, Mike.
It is embarrassing. If you just joined us, I think it's time to show just another clip from it. This is them talking about Rachel Reeves.
How do you really comfort people on tax? Because that is the biggest challenge to any Labour government. You can't manage the economy.
It's one of the reasons I appointed Rachel Reeves to the role of Chancellor, because she's obviously got Bank of England experience and she's got sort of iron rules as Rachel. She will not sign off anything unless it's fully costed and fully funded. Tax levels now are the highest for 70 years, so we can't just go and pull the tax lever. That's why we've said no increase in income tax, in national insurance or VAT. You've got to show, I understand, it really matters.
Experience?
It's just
what
hilarious.
Experience?
Yeah. If you
she's
go
got Bank of England
today,
experience. You mean
Bank
she's got
England.
no experience in the private sector?
Yeah, she works
and
for
that
the
goes
Bank
for
of
the
England.
whole cabinet, by the way, that they've all just been public servants pretty much their whole lives.
I mean, I wonder, you sort of want to see
she
them...
made some coffees, I think, and answered some complaints
as they walk through...
Wasn't an economist.
No, no, I'm an economist. I went to London School of Economics, studied economics at the London School of Economics. I mean, we can play that clip till the cows come home. Imagine them walking down in the woods and suddenly Rachel Reeves pops out from behind a tree. Hello, I'm here. I've got an answer for how we're going to run the economy. Completely useless, right? And they think, as you say, that we're idiots. They think that they can kind of, palm us off with this absolute cobblers of PR, where they go, oh, here's Gary Neville and Keir Starmer just wandering about in the woods with some sort of vague idea of how they're going to run the country. It's embarrassing, isn't it?
It looks like some sort of acting from a Year 7 drama class or something. That's the level.
Honestly, it looks like
staged.
It looks like the and I haven't seen much gay porn, but it looks like the beginning of a gay porn film. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then they end up like behind a tree doing some unspeakable things to each other.
And despite you've got both the awkwardness of just them interacting with each other, and then you've got the substance of what Starmer has said. Everything he said there has turned out to be a complete and utter lie.
Farrago of BS.
We will have to play that again after the budget. After the budget,
listen.
When inevitably the taxes are going to go up, and now that we've had Kemi Badenoch announce that she wants to scrap stamp duty, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Rachel Reeves at that.
Well, listen,
I'm glad
you mentioned Rachel Reeves, because we've got some Rachel Reeves talking about her experience in the financial sector. Check this out.
At the same time, we also have a challenging economic inheritance with high levels of tax as a share of GDP, historic high levels of government debt, and then also economic growth that really for the last 15 years has been very poor by historical standards because of the weak productivity growth that we've experienced in that period of time. It's
a masterclass, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I know that there's no news today, right? And this is why we're doing this. I'm sorry about this. Should we move on to Kemi Badenoch, right? Who says that she's going to get rid of stamp duty?
One more thing on Gary Neville, though. We've got to mention.
No, listen, we haven't forgotten about it.
We've got to mention the fact that the terrorist that attacked the synagogue.
Oh yeah.
It turns out that he did call 999 and admit it and said that he did it for ISIS.
Yes.
And the reason why I bring that up is because Gary Neville put out that video where he basically insinuated that the way that this attack came about is because of us evil lot on the far right putting up Union Jacks.
Yes. Angry, middle-aged white men, I think he blamed.
I don't think that those people putting up flags are part of ISIS.
The dead man, who was shot dead by Manchester police, thank God, right, before he could kill any more people, was not white, he was not middle class, he was not in any way angry. He might have been angry, but he was not the man that Gary Neville said he was. You know, basically Gary Neville said it was all the fault of white, angry, middle-class men. What a complete and utter plonker.
I know.
Stick to football, mate.
What planet is he on? I mean, these people, they will just try and they will spin anything to make it fit their narrative, their worldview, that everything that is wrong in the world is all because of patriotic, evil white people.
Yes, I know.
I mean, there's no way that you can
ridiculous,
spin attack on a synagogue, Jewish people, to, oh, it must have been the evil British patriotic far right.
I know. Extraordinary. Let's have a look at Kemi Badenoch, who supposedly represents white, angry, middle-class people, men in particular, and maybe women. She's talking about stamp duty.
Stamp duty is a bad tax. It is an unconservative tax. The last Conservative government cut stamp duty for thousands of home buyers. But now we must go further. We must free up our housing market, because a society where no one can afford to buy or move is a society where social mobility is dead. I have looked at the rates you have to pay to see if we can lower them. I have decided that we can't, because that simply wouldn't be enough. Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
I mean, I don't care what she says, really. I mean, we've reached that point where actually it doesn't really matter. We had Mel Stride on Monday. We had Kevin Hollinbrake on yesterday, who's the chairman of the Tory party. I said, the trouble is you're kind of irrelevant. Nobody really gives a toss what you say. Gives a monkey's cuss what you do, because they're not going to be in power for probably a generation at this point, are they?
No, I mean, Kemi's lucky it's quite a slow news day today, because that means she has managed to get this across quite a lot of the front pages.
The front pages taking it seriously.
I'll give credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
This is a good policy, and I think most people across the board have welcomed this policy and said that sounds like a good idea. But the problem is that is not going... People are saying, oh, the Conservatives, they're back in the game now, and it feels like there is a little bit of hope, and maybe they'll have a small poll boost after this. We'll see what happens, but I doubt it's going to be anywhere near what is necessary to beat the Reform Party. Reform very much still have the momentum. She was trying to...
And they're sort of gripping the agenda, which the Conservatives are kind of, you know, following on after the event, very much after the Lord Mayor's show. They don't seem to have any... Nobody cares what they say.
It all feels too little, too late, and especially when this comes at the end of a conference that has been quite disastrous so far. I mean, you had them spelling Britain incorrectly on the chocolate. You've had loads of just rooms almost completely empty. They couldn't sell the conference out anywhere near it.
And there was no money there.
No, because normally they have it. It's like a posh freshers fair, and you have all of these business stands, but all they had was like Conservative Friends of India and all of these different groups. So the money has clearly left. And then you had, I think they thought it was going to be a really big win when they announced their immigration policy and said, we've decided, we've got a 200-page report, we've really thought about it, we are going to leave the ECHR. And everyone just thought, well, Reform are saying that anyways, and when we trust Reform more because they didn't fail for 14 years, so why does that give us any reason to vote for the Tories?
And we're going to give them a chance because you've had a go for 2 or 3 actual sections of government, and you've done nothing.
They needed to do something to distinguish themselves from Reform. And I think although the Conservative Party has a very broad ideology, one thing that you do think about when you think of conservatism with a capital C is home ownership. And so I think stamp duty probably seemed like the right policy to try and redefine who they are. And then they tried to also paint themselves as the party of fiscal responsibility. That's what Mel Stride was trying to do when he was then going on the media rounds after this, and they're saying how they fully costed this, and they've got this new golden rule where half of the savings they make are going to go to eliminating the country's debt. But with all of these things, people look at the past record of the party and say, oh, well, you may well say you're under new leadership, but how can we really trust you?
Exactly.
Is it all going to be all talk and
Because they're
no
all
action?
the same people. You know, it's all very well for Mel Stride and for Kemi Badenoch and for, you know, Robert Jenrick all to get kind of, you know, I'm quite impressed with Robert Jenrick, I must say. But to hear them all say the things that they say and go, but you can't just completely, you know, kind of rationalise that you were no longer part of a government that you didn't agree with, and that, you know, you were part of a government for 14 years that didn't do anything, and now you say, well, I didn't really agree with what they were doing, and so now I've got a different idea. Nobody's buying that.
No, not at all. And I mean, one reason why I voted Reform at the last election, when at the time it didn't look anything like Reform would be able to ever be in number 10. A lot of people and myself thought, oh, we need to actually wipe out as many Tory MPs as possible, just because we need some fresh faces in, because we can't trust a lot that were still there. But even though the number of MPs is massively reduced, the people in the shadow cabinet, the people running the show, it's all the same people, just as we say, shuffling the deck chairs around on the Titanic. And they may say, oh, I wasn't the Prime Minister at the time that there were failings with immigration, failing with the economy, but I don't think that completely excuses them.
No.
And there will be things where they say, oh yes, I really disagree with what happened there, I wasn't the Prime Minister, but they weren't exactly shouting from the rooftops, making a big scene about it. They were just sitting quietly, behaving themselves in their cabinet.
And that's the problem with what people see as the uni party, which is the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, who are both, as many people say, two cheeks of the same backside. And they don't want them anymore. They don't want to say, we will give our faith and our vote and our trust and our loyalty to any of these people, because they're all the same. Whereas the untried and the untested Reform Party, we will give them a go, because why not?
Well, I think people, they're willing to take a risk. They're willing to take a chance. I mean, you saw with Brexit, very few people predicted that it would
happen,
but they underestimated the willingness of the people of this country to actually take a risk and try something that is unpredictable. And I think that Kemi Badenoch thinks that she can make their experience the unique selling point of the Conservative Party, but actually it's not really helping. So what she did, she was good not to talk about Nigel Farage constantly like Starmer and Ed Davey did at their conferences, because that came across a bit desperate, but there were hints. So at the beginning of her speech yesterday, she decided to thank all of her team and point out indirectly there, I've got a shadow cabinet, I've got a team, I've got a shadow chancellor and a team who've been able to think through and fully cost this plan to cut stamp duty, unlike the Reform Party who don't have a shadow cabinet. So she's trying to show we have a team, we have people, but I think most people think, look, Reform, they may not have it all together yet, but they still trust them to get it together over the next 4 years. At Reform, they are, you know, bit by bit, they're doing these press conferences in certain policy areas and outlining what they think, and I think people trust that they will get it together. They have some worries, but people think, why not give it a go?
Exactly.
Because the Conservatives have always had a team, but it didn't work before.
But also what went before and what's going on now is so useless that people are going, we're literally happy to try anything to make it better. 0344 499 1000. Morning, Mike, says Chris. Are they looking for land to put in a trust? Says Chris in Chester. Yeah, we never know. It seems as though every single member of the Conservative Party and indeed the Labour Party have got stuff in trust. We don't have stuff in trust, do we? This one from Diane in Southend-on-Sea. No, she says, I just switched on to see Keir Starmer and Gary Neville. Stop it, it's horrible. We're going to play you some more of Gary Neville and Keir Starmer walking around in the woods. I don't know why they're doing it. Nobody knows why they're doing it, but it's quite funny to watch. I'm Mike Graham. More after this.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham, with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Chloe Dobbs is here, and we're talking about some of the stories in the papers this morning. Not very much news around today, it has to be said. And, of course, you know, that means that we bring you our own version of the news, which is, to a large extent, pictures of Gary Neville and Keir Starmer walking around in the woods together in a very bizarre kind of, you know, homoerotic kind of film. I don't know what it's about. I don't know why they're doing it. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's get a voice note from John.
Morning, Mike. John from West Yorkshire here. I'm loving your serialisation of the new version of, I think, is it going to be Babes in the Wood with Starmer and Neville? How coincidental that they're wearing the identical uniforms. But have a great day. Bye-bye.
Yes, absolutely right. I mean, let's just replay the first part of Keir and Gary in the Lake District. Have a look.
How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you? Are we good?
Thanks for doing this, then.
No, no
really
problem
good.
at all. No, it's great to see you. And
do you know this part of the world at all?
No. And I was thinking, I've obviously just driven here today. I was thinking, you either go to Wales, you either go to the Lake District, or you go to Blackpool. I went to Blackpool, but I've never been. How did you find this place?
So my parents brought us here every single year when we were growing up. They love the Lake District.
Yeah.
They went on the honeymoon there, and so I've been here so many times.
Keir Starmer says his mother was really ill, right? I don't want to, you know, cause private grief or anything like that. But he's now saying his parents used to take him to the Lake District every year. I thought his mother was more or less incapacitated.
There are a few inconsistencies in his story.
Yeah.
I mean, for
his
example...
dad was a toolmaker, not really.
Well, didn't he say that he was a farmer? He said he used to work on a farm.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of people came out and said, no, he's never worked a day on a farm in the area.
Right.
What is the guy talking
about? He's just a liar,
about?
Isn't he?
He is.
He's literally a fantasist.
Yes, he constantly lies. Everything that comes out of his mouth, you can be sure that it's not true.
Right. That's really worrying, isn't it?
I know.
Because what sort of person who tells those kind of lies ends up running the country? That's what worries me.
He lies and he lies and he lies, and I've got one thing I've got really fed up with recently is his constant lies about the Reform Party.
Yeah.
If you're going to combat them, actually address their policies properly rather than just make up a complete and utter lie. So when he did the interview where he infamously said that Reform's policy is racist on indefinite leave to remain,
I think it's racist.
He lied to the country because he said in that interview, he said, "Oh, what this policy is going to do is it's going to kick out all the hard-working doctors, nurses, and teachers,
which was never going to happen.
And made a life for himself."
Right.
And I'm thinking, have you read the policy? Or are you just lying on purpose to misconstrue what Reform's policy is to the public? Because that's simply not their policy. Their policy says that if you've learned English and you earn a living rather than living off
and
benefits,
you contribute to the business of
I'm pretty sure a doctor, nurse or a teacher, they're all going to get to stay, right? So he's completely made this up. And they keep on saying... They keep on lying and saying that you have to pay for your healthcare under the Reform Party, and they put out all these graphics on Twitter where they say, "Oh, it's going to cost you 15 grand to get your appendix taken out if Reform are in power." Where have you got that from? Reform have said that healthcare will be free at the point of use. They might bring in some private contracting. Potentially.
Which, by the way, is already being done by the NHS. They bring in private contracting all the time.
Yeah, but you might decide to have somewhat of an insurance-based system where it's still free and you have a coupon system, but I can choose between GPA and GPB.
Right.
That's still free at the point of use. But they are putting out absolute lies to try and combat the Reform Party.
It's pathetic,
and it's not working. I'm sorry, but it's karma. You pay if you're a liar and you've got no integrity, you'll pay the price for it.
People are not buying it because they don't trust Keir Starmer, they don't trust Kemi Badenoch, they don't trust the two main parties to tell the truth about anything. Here's Starmer in India, where he is currently. Yesterday he went to visit some actors in Bollywood. Let's see what he's doing today.
This looks fantastic, and it's really good to see you. And the first thing I want to say is a massive thank you to all of you for being here in India with us, because this is the biggest trade mission that the United Kingdom has ever sent to India. And I think it's really good evidence of just how strong the relationship is and how many business opportunities there are. And we've got businesses, some of the biggest businesses doing deals and business with India, some of the iconic businesses, small businesses as well. So we've got all sorts of businesses here. We've got great academic institutions represented, brilliant universities that are already doing great stuff here and about to do even more of it. And then we've got art and culture, film, drama, sport as well. So a really important and big delegation. So thank you for being here. There's a real buzz about it already. I hope you felt that before we got on the plane and on the plane and all the way through.
Dear Christ. What, you know, what's he doing?
How many times did he say the word business?
Business. Well, and also, how much is this costing us? You know, and why are we taking all these people to India for a jolly?
I mean, didn't David Lammy's department spend, what, 500 grand on just champagne and meals out?
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you can do business with India, great, fine, marvellous, fantastic. But why do you have to take everybody there at the cost of the British taxpayer?
This is the highlight of a politician.
Sorry, if you run a company, Chloe, and you want to do business with India, I'd be saying to you, very good luck to you, great business, good for the economy, good for the taxation scenario. But, you know, I'm not paying for you to go to India to go and do that business. Why should I?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what he loves. They love it. You've got all of these champagne socialists in the cabinet who have decided they're not in politics for the good, to help the country. They've made that clear over the past year that they are more sleazy than the Tories ever were. They painted themselves as all moralistic, but they love their freebies. They love all these fun trips abroad. And one of the reasons why they like these fun trips abroad is not just because of the fancy planes and the champagne flutes and the nice meals. It's because they get to escape this country where everybody actually holds them to account. People actually treat them with a nice reception, generally speaking, when they go abroad to these fancy conferences. Whereas when they're here and they're in Westminster,
VIPs here, they just get shouted at.
Exactly. They actually get held to account.
Hordes of people going, Keir Starmer's
exactly. They're not liked here at all on their own soil. What real politicians should be doing is spending their time getting out and getting to know the people of this country, rather than avoiding them because you're too scared to face them and going out to other parts of the country. David Lammy, who we know he loves to gallivant around the world and have all the shame he's not foreign.
He's not going to go to Manchester again in a hurry, though, is he?
Well, when he went to Manchester, so the guy who was introducing him, he said, I actually allowed those people to heckle and let them let their frustration out because he thought it's actually good for a politician to hear what people on the ground around this country think. And maybe it was very embarrassing for David Lammy, but actually that's what politicians should be doing. They should actually be going out and listening to people around the country, rather than just living in your Westminster bubble
even if
and
what they're
looking
saying,
at what people think online.
Even if what they're saying is not very palatable. Let's get a couple of messages in. Chris says, morning, Mike. The walk in the woods, what a joke. Oh, let's meet in the woods to make a film as if we just bumped into each other. Yeah, like, that's exactly what Starmer does. Everything he does is fake. Says Chris. Beck says, good morning, Mike and Chloe. Margaret, currently in Tunisia, says, it's not that Starmer doesn't get it, he just doesn't care. He doesn't like this country or the people. He wants to get closer to the EU. In fact, he's quite dangerous and a threat to this country. Also, he seems to be enforcing digital ID on companies imminently without any discussion. I mean, that is the other problem that the story about digital ID is. You know, it's kind of gone away. He didn't mention it in his speech at all, even though before the speech on the Friday, he was throwing it out there, you know, willy-nilly, trying to make as many people as possible talk about it. But people are not very happy about it. As I said, you know, minus 14% approval rating on the actual policy itself. And yet, he's going to try and push it through without really any kind of conversation at all with the public, without any debate in the House of Commons, without any debate in the House of Lords. You know, he can't do that.
It's completely undemocratic. When you're dealing with a policy that has such significant privacy concerns, it absolutely needs to be something that was on your manifesto, that you have consent from the public for. It's not something that can just be forced upon people when it's not just anything, but we're talking about an ID that would take away civil liberties. I don't know I don't know if he thought that this was going to go down well and this was going to be a success, or if he just wanted to put something out to take two things off the front pages, which was the Morgan McSweeney 739 grand story.
Which still hasn't gone away, by the way.
Yeah, and also the fact that his one-in, one-out policy was completely failing at this point, and I think he wanted to put something out before he went to conference to make it look like they are having some sort of success with illegal migration, to say, oh, look, we've got this big fancy policy that's going to sort it all out. Don't worry about the one-in, one-out policy failing. I don't know if that was his thinking, but it hasn't gone down well either way.
No, it really hasn't. More of your views, please. 0344 499 1000. Do leave us a voice note. Do call us. Do send us a message on X, which is at talkTV. Or you can text us as well at 87222. Start your message with the word talk. This is the home of common sense. We want to hear from all of you this morning because there's not much news around. So we're going to be navigating our way through some of the stories that we want to talk about, and also this bizarre video of Keir Starmer and Gary Neville wandering about in the woods in the Lake District. What's it all about? This is Talk.
only good news out there is that it is less than 4 years. Not that I'm counting by the day, but I am literally. It is terrible, but that's what happens when hard left socialists essentially are running the show.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 6:51. We're almost at the end of the first hour already. Chloe Dobbs is here. Thank you very much indeed for being here, Chloe, when we haven't got an awful lot to talk about. Bit of breaking news, though. The signing of the Gaza ceasefire deal is reported to take place at 9 a.m. this morning. So in about, just over 2 hours' time, supposedly there will be a ceasefire agreement signed by not only Israel and Hamas, but also by the United States of America, who have sort of masterminded it all. We're going to talk to Charles Feldman now, just very briefly, US political analyst and host of the SOS America podcast. Let's have a quick look at, though, what Donald Trump said last night in the midst of signing some papers.
Find the criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I'm just given... Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly, so I will take a couple of more questions.
That was him last night in the White House answering questions from the press when he was handed a note saying, we're pretty close to a deal. Charles, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
What's the story and what's the deal?
Well, Trump had this 20-point plan for peace in the Middle East, and he had a lot of ultimatums that he gave both to Israel and to Hamas. And if he had to kind of decide who ended up blinking, I guess it would be both Israel and Hamas, because they now have agreed, apparently, for this exchange of prisoners. Hamas is going to give up, it says, those who are still alive and the bodies, of course, of those who are not. And in turn, Israel plans to give back to Hamas Palestinians who are in prison there. So that in and of itself is clearly an achievement, and hats off to Mr. Trump if he in fact was the one instrumental in getting that done. But I do caution to add that I started off by saying that it was a 20-point plan for peace in the Middle East. This is just one of the 20 points. So we are still a very long way from having this particular war ended in a fashion that would even begin to guarantee some sort of lasting peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that I suppose is the most difficult bit, isn't it? Whether or not it holds, whether or not, if all the hostages are released, what does that mean for Hamas? I mean, they must know that basically they will be wiped out and be sort of chased to the ends of the earth and killed, basically. So what's in it for them?
Well, look, once Hamas gives back the prisoners, they really lose their bargaining chip, don't they?
Yeah.
So it's not clear what their end game is, because part of that 20-point plan that President Trump has on the table would be for Hamas to give up its weapons, to cede control, any kind of political control of the Gaza Strip, allow an international commission that Mr. Trump wants to chair along with other prominent politicians, including your former Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Yeah.
Whether Hamas is going to go along with that, they have not said. So again, it's good if all of this happens in terms of the prisoner exchanges, but it's a long way from fulfilling that 20-point plan, and it is certainly a long way from having any kind of a two-state solution, which is what the Palestinians want and which is what Israel steadfastly refuses to do.
We shall see. Charles, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. US political analyst and host of the SOS America podcast. Chloe Dobbs is here with me. They're going to sign this deal supposedly around about 9 a.m. this morning, within the couple of hours of this show. It's got to be a good thing, hasn't it?
Yes, it's a step in the right direction, but I think people are getting too excited too soon, because although we've got this grand plan which says Hamas will have to seize control of Gaza, they'll have to lay down their weapons, that's what really needs to happen for there to be lasting peace. But this first phase that Hamas are agreeing to is simply a hostage release. We've also had cases where Hamas have agreed to release hostages in the past, and then that hasn't quite happened, and then I think they gave the wrong body for one of the hostages.
Yeah, a lot of them are dead as well. They've killed them.
Exactly. So Hamas can really mess people around, and I don't believe there's a high chance of Hamas agreeing to lay down their arms.
Right.
I mean, Donald Trump is a very good negotiator, so I think if there's one man to do it, it's perhaps him. But we are a long way from getting to the point where Hamas is eradicated.
And the thing that people don't ever really say, and this is really what I find insidious about some of the demonstrations that we've seen over the course of the last 2 years, and even now, you know, on the 7th of October, the anniversary of 2 years of horror that these people have been put through, is that, you know, basically all of Palestine is riddled with people who support Hamas, you know, and whether you're in Hamas or not, or whether you support them or not, you know, most of Gaza is now pretty much, you know, Hamas territory. They're not going to go, oh, we'll just lie down, we'll just go quietly, we'll just forget about the fact that we hate Israel, the fact that we want them to be destroyed, the fact that we would rather kill a Jew than be friends to a Jew. You know, I mean, I find it an intractable problem, ridiculously horrible, ghastly, bigoted place where they just don't want to be friends with Jews. It's as simple as that. You know, they are racists, aren't they, in the end?
Yeah, I mean, there is just a huge amount of anti-Semitism there because they are indoctrinated. That's part of the...
Kids, they've been teaching kids how to fire guns, aren't they?
Exactly. They are teaching kids to hate Jews. They tell them all these mantras in school, and they tell them to be martyrs, and this is a huge problem. And I'm afraid, I know that people don't like the sound of this, but the only way that that is going to possibly come to an end is if you have some people come in and just take over the place for a while. I know it'd be very unpopular if Israel does that, so I'm very happy to have some sort of other, you know, Arab
apparently
states.
It's going to be Tony Blair.
Well, whoever it is, they need to be pretty cutthroat on not tolerating any rubbish, making very clear this is a population that are radicalised and we need to de-radicalise them, and they need to be very hot on making sure they cut, you know, they stop in its tracks any arising extremist groups, because even if they get rid of Hamas, more and more will try to form, and they're going to have to be, you know, it's going to have to be a bit of a top-down approach to start with, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And who knows if the Palestinians can even do that, because they're so filled with hatred about Israel that maybe they can't actually be turned around. We shall see. Chloe, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. This from Sean in Gloucester. He says, people have had enough of the same old lies from the two old parties, and certainly this current government that have done nothing but supercharge the lies and the sleaze. Whenever the next election happens, the Labour Party will be totally wiped out, making the kicking the Tories got in the last election pale into insignificance. The silent majority have found their voice, and they want a genuine, fresh approach. Nigel and Reform may not get everything right, might not be able to do all the things they want, but if they achieve as little as 10% of what they want done, it's a biblical shift from what we've got now. Good point. Sean in Gloucester, thank you. We'll be back after the news with more on Morning Glory. very good morning to you, by the way. Morning Glory with me, Mike Graham.
Just some breaking news for you coming out of Liverpool Crown Court.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the programme. Welcome to the Home of Common Sense.
Loads to talk about, I promise you that. Loads and loads and loads.
Yes, it's me again, your genial host, Kevin O'Sullivan.
How realistic do you think a ceasefire is this week?
There's a very good chance that we'll have a settlement, an agreement of some kind.
We basically have two countries.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 7. It is, of course, Thursday, the 9th of October. We're already into the second week of the month. It's incredible, isn't it, how fast things are going. A bit of breaking news for you. The signing of a Gaza ceasefire deal is reported to take place this morning. Contrary to various different reports, it's not clear whether it will happen at 9 o'clock, might happen at 9:30, might happen at 9:45, might happen at 10 o'clock. We've obviously got an awful lot of people watching from around the world, whether it be from America, whether it be from Pakistan, from India, from the Middle East, where the deal will obviously be struck, whether it be from Downing Street. You know, Donald Trump has managed to get the people around the table, which I think we should be very thankful for, whether it's Hamas, whether it's the Israeli government, whether it's the United Arab Emirates, whether it's in Saudi Arabia. He's managed to get all the people that need to be around the table, and for all of the things and all of the distractions and all of the people who disparage what Donald Trump does and say, well, of course, he's just a complete and utter awful, ghastly man who goes around grabbing women by parts of their anatomy, which you can't mention at this time of the morning. You know, at the end of the day, Donald Trump has probably saved the world. He's got it done. He's got the deal done. He's always interested in signing deals. He's always interested in being the deal maker, and it looks as though he may have done a deal for a ceasefire, at least, in Gaza. And if it means that the hostages get released, that can't be a bad thing. If it means that the dreadful, ghastly, awful scumbags called Hamas are going to stop killing people, then that's got to be surely a good thing that we should applaud. 0344 499 1000 is the number you need to call. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who's in India at the moment, says this is a moment of profound relief that we felt around the world. Really? OK, then. Anything to do with you? No, not really. He says, I'm grateful for the tireless diplomatic efforts of Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and the United States, supported by our regional partners in securing this crucial first step. Well, you know, it's all very well. And I'm very happy for Keir Starmer, I'm very happy for Israel, very happy for Palestine, very happy for Gaza, very happy for the people who have suffered so much over the course of time since 2 years ago when those ghastly, horrible events took place, when Hamas terrorists broke into Israel. Some of them flew in on paragliders, some of them just drove trucks through the fence and raped and murdered and burned to death several innocent people, to wit about 1,200, by the way, people who did not deserve to die, who had simply gone to a music festival or were simply minding their own business in a kibbutz making breakfast, and these scumbags, these horrible, ghastly, awful terrorists came in and killed them. And I'm afraid there is nothing left for me to say other than that if they all died a horrible death, right now, I'd be very happy. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Cliff in Berkshire says this, morning Mike, you are as normal correct. It doesn't matter what the Conservative Party has to say, no one believes them. Reform would be daft if they accepted a mass migration of ex-Conservative MPs to their ranks, because they would be just as phony no matter which party's rosette they wore. I think Nigel Farage is very careful about that, and I think he's very, very acutely aware of what the sort of position of many Reform voters is, because many of them don't want to see the Reform Party echoing what the Conservative Party did. They certainly don't want to see left-wingers from the Conservative Party coming into their organisation, because what they would do is ruin Reform in the same way they ruin the Tories. Because let's face it, the Tory Party has been destroyed from within. The Tory Party has not been destroyed by Labour. The Tory Party did not lose the election because Labour mounted a great campaign. They lost the election because they had simply lost the will to live. They had simply lost the ability to govern the country. And they were riven by all sorts of ridiculousness from the left wing of their party, i.e. to wit, net zero craziness, and also a kind of a slight loving of migration and bringing people into the country who were going to do some good, which it turned out didn't really work out. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk to Robert Taylor, political columnist, right here, right now. Robert, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Let me play you some Kemi Badenoch material. She was up at her, obviously, her Conservative conference this week. Yesterday she was saying she was going to do away with stamp duty, but she was also saying that, you know, now is not the time to be a shrinking violet. Let's have a look.
Stamp duty is a bad tax. It is an unconservative tax. The last Conservative government cut stamp duty for thousands of home buyers. But now we must go further. We must free up our housing market, because a society where no one can afford to buy or move is a society where social mobility is dead. I have looked at the rates you have to pay to see if we can lower them. I have decided that we can't, because that simply wouldn't be enough. Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
So she's going to abolish stamp duty. When I watched that, Robert, I don't know about you, I got this sort of overwhelming feeling of, so what? You might as well say, I'm going to abolish gravity. Or I'm going to abolish, you know, duty-free shopping. I'm going to abolish, you know, walking down the left side of the road, and you're going to make everybody walk down the right side of the road. It doesn't really matter what she says she's going to abolish, does it?
You're saying that because she hasn't got a chance of being elected, I assume, is your feeling there, Mike?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you may well be right, but I think she bought herself time yesterday. I read the entire speech after she had delivered it, and I had to say, Mike, I am a Badenoch, rather than a Badenoch. She's Badenoch. I'm a Badenoch fan. I like what she said. I applaud the Tory instinct to cut expenditure. I think we do live beyond our means, and if that can mean also cutting the deficit and cutting taxes, then that is exactly what I want to see. Having said all that, Mike, you might well be right that it's too late, and she's wasted a year, and Nigel Farage has filled that vacuum very effectively.
Exactly right. And when Nigel Farage speaks, whether you like it or not, he sounds like a man who wants to be Prime Minister, and it sounds like a man, given what the polls say, could well be Prime Minister whenever the next election is. But she doesn't come across like that. I don't know why.
Do you know, I had to disagree with you. I think, you know, I'm old enough to remember Maggie Thatcher. I was obviously a child when she first got the Tory leadership. And everyone said she can't be Prime Minister. She doesn't sound like a Prime Minister. No one sounds like a Prime Minister until they become Prime Minister. Now, look, I'm not saying that Badenoch will become Prime Minister. She's got an absolute mountain to climb. All I'm going on is what I saw yesterday on that speech. And for me, I was just nodding along to everything she said. It's everything I believe in. Family, strong borders, and small government, cutting taxes, cutting spending. Now, you might well say, what did they do for 14 years? Particularly in the last 3 or 4, they did the opposite of that. I agree with you on that, if that's your point and the point of others. However, all I can judge her speech on is what she actually said yesterday. I thought it was very good.
Yeah, well, you know, it may well be that she made a good speech, but what I'm told from people who were up at the Conservative Party conference, and I met a couple of people yesterday, funnily enough, who had just come back from there, they said it was a bit like a kind of a wake. It was really not somewhere that you wanted to be. It was all a bit cringe. It was all a bit kind of, you know, people looking around at each other going, what are we doing here? There was no sponsors to speak of. There was no real money and swilling around like it normally is in Conservative Party circles. You know, it was almost as though it was an event which was a sort of a destiny event of the end of the Tory party.
They are paying the price for catastrophic mistakes that they made, particularly in the last sort of 3 or 4 years of those 14. Mass migration. I think lockdown has caused huge hardship. They're paying the price for that. Liz Truss's budget. Now, a lot of people would say she's been unfairly maligned for that budget, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, but the popular belief it was a disaster. And then, of course, Sunak couldn't string together a narrative that was compelling for people. And Labour won the election by default. The Tories are paying the price. Will they die or will they recover? Well, if they do recover, I think yesterday was the beginning of it.
Yes. Very possibly so. But when you see how useless this Labour government is and how hopeless they are when it comes to making any sort of planning for the future, you wonder why the Conservatives are not actually doing better in the polls. Because they're not. They're actually not managing to point any fingers. They're not managing to score any points. They're not managing to capitalise, if you like, on Labour's absolute and utter drudgery and pathetic uselessness. And I find that extraordinary.
Correct. I mean, this Labour government is the worst in my lifetime. It doesn't give me pleasure to say Keir Starmer is the worst Prime Minister in my lifetime, but he is, bar none, I would say.
Yeah.
Why aren't the Tories filling that vacuum? Very simply because Farage is a genius when it comes to public profile building and capturing the mood of the nation. And that's what he's done. They're up to 35% in the polls. Tories are about half of that in the polls. He's filled that vacuum. He's done very well over the last year, and Kemi is now playing catch-up.
Yes, I'm afraid so. But I'm going to show you something which I think will make you probably cringe slightly, and it might even make you kind of, clench yourself without wishing to put too fine a point on it. This is Gary Neville and Keir Starmer. This is a video we discovered that had been knocking around since before the last election, before Prime Minister Starmer became Prime Minister. Have a look at this.
How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you? Are we good?
Thanks for doing this, then.
No
really
problem
good.
at all. No, it's great to see you. And
do you know this part of the world at all?
No. And I was thinking, I've obviously just driven here today. I was thinking, you either go to Wales, you either go to the Lake District, or you go to Blackpool. I went to Blackpool, but I've never been. How did you find this place?
So my parents brought us here every single year when we were growing up. They love the Lake District.
Yeah.
They went on the honeymoon there, and so I've been here so many times.
He loves the Lake District, apparently. A more ridiculously wooden performance I've never seen. There's more of it, by the way. I'm not sure I can expose more of it to you for safeguarding reasons. You might not wish to see it. But, I mean, how ridiculous and pathetic is this?
Yeah, well, Gary Neville used to be a footballing hero of mine. I'm not a Man United fan, but I was very much and still am an England fan. And he's one of those who's, disappointed me so much since he gave up. Of course he has. I disagree with everything he says about politics and all this virtue signalling with the Prime Minister. Well, I think that was June last year, wasn't it? So it was before Starmer became Prime Minister. I wonder if Gary Neville will be quite so happy to spend time in the Lake District with Starmer now. I reckon even Gary Neville would have to say, goodness me, this Labour Prime Minister has been pretty disastrous.
Well, Gary Neville, being a thick individual, thinking that he's got sort of the joys of intelligence because he's got the one-eyed man in the land of the blind in terms of football, he's very much aligned with Andy Burnham. And Andy Burnham will no doubt have told him in recent days, Keir Starmer's finished and you should support me to become the new leader of the Labour Party. So he'll probably be regretting this, and so we're going to just keep playing it until he explodes.
Yeah, well, I don't know about Andy Burnham's not an MP yet, and I don't think Gary Neville's support is going to get Andy Burnham into Downing Street. Burnham's got like I said with Badenoch, a mountain to climb to get there. We'll see what he does.
Yeah. It really is ridiculous. Let's have another one from them. This is Starmer and Neville talking about action, not words.
The country are desperately disappointed, just generally, in politicians. They quite often use language like they're all the same, two cheeks of the same backside. How do you change that? Because that is something that's been set now for quite a few years.
Action, not words. I don't think people are going to believe that politics has changed until they see it has changed. The first thing is returning politics to service. It's a public service. You're here to serve the country.
Do you, like me, Robert, think there's something wrong with Keir Starmer?
Well, when he says that kind of thing, I just think it is such profound hypocrisy.
Yeah.
From a man who he became Labour leader on a far left platform, abandoned it as soon as he became Labour leader. Then he promised the British people loads of things about smash the gangs, government of integrity, we won't put taxes on working people, we're not going to be like the Tories. He's abandoned all that as well.
Yeah.
It's just utter hypocrisy. And the biggest mistake for him is to eulogise about his own brilliance before he became Prime Minister, to overpromise and then, as we've seen, underdeliver appallingly. And people are realising, only June 2024, when that video was made, Starmer was riding at about 45% in the polls. He's now down to 19-20%. The British people have realised, belatedly, too late, that they were sold a pup. And I think it's horrible to see Starmer talking like that from a year ago. Really horrible.
Yeah, I think so too. This from Christopher. He says, I've seen the Keir Starmer impromptu walking in the woods and strangely bumping into the ex-footballer Gary Neville before, and thought at the time that it was incredibly weird. Not looking forward to this being replayed, yet weirdly interested as well. I mean, and that's the thing, you sort of can't take your eyes off it because you can't quite be sure what's going on. Let's have a quick voice note from Tony.
Morning, Mike. Great show as always. It's Tony from Basingstoke. Great news that Donald Trump has got the peace deal signed. First and foremost, seeing the hostages reunited with their families will just be a joy to see. But for me as well, if it means we see less and less of odious little creeps like Greta Thunberg and two Bob celebrities joining the Palestine bandwagon, I, for one, have got to be celebrating. Take care. All the best.
Tony, thanks very much indeed. I mean, the big news, obviously, this morning, Robert, is that there will be a signing of a ceasefire deal, apparently, coming in the next couple of hours. It could be about 9 o'clock, could be 10 o'clock. We're not quite sure exactly when, but it seems as though Donald Trump has managed to pull this off.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I mean, if this can work and we can stop the suffering, the world can stop the suffering in Gaza, we can return the hostages to their families. There are a number of hostages who are going to come back in body bags. Awful, but at least they'll be returned to their families. This is really fabulous news. And for all that we, can say Donald Trump didn't do this, didn't do that, he's pretty awful at this, and his tariffs were bad. This is a major achievement. If this goes through, I think this is Donald Trump's achievement. And for all those who hate him, yeah, you may have a good reason to on other matters. But this is a big, big deal. And I just pray, actually, Mike, that this could lead to some sort of lasting peace. I don't have huge ambition for that because we know the history of that part of the world for the last few decades. But if we can get some peace deal, this is tremendous news for the region and the world as a whole.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt most people would agree that if we could stop the killing on either side, that would be good. That would be great. Great message from Tony. Robert, thank you very much indeed. Robert Taylor, political columnist there. This from Rachel, who says, morning, Mike. Rachel from Yorkshire. Great news, Ray, the peace deal in Gaza. Thank you. Thank you. Donald is the peacemaker. How about a Nobel Prize? A great show. And this from Paul in Fife. Morning, Mike. We hear a lot about Islamists and Islamic ideology, particularly when a terrorist incident occurs. It is used to differentiate between these madmen and peaceful Muslims. What we don't hear explained is how Islamic ideology differs from the ideology preached by Muhammad, and which is followed by all Muslims across the world. Well, funnily enough, what we got was this guy, Jihadi, who spoke before he was actually shot dead by the police, and said that he did what he did, and he took hostages and killed people on the basis that he was doing it for ISIS. So there's no question that he was absolutely and utterly driven by a lust for terrorism. No question at all. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on.
just days afterwards. Is this all part of Keir Starmer's apparent campaign to quash the fact that the perpetrator of this atrocity, these murders at a Jewish synagogue, was a Muslim, was an Islamist terrorist? Is that why we're only finding this out now? I think it is. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, let's talk about what I think is our big story of the night. It's extraordinary, this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. A bit of breaking news for you. In addition to the breaking news about the Gaza peace deal, which may be coming to you as soon as 2 hours from now, that's, of course, the signing of the Gaza ceasefire deal, reported to be taking place sometime this morning. Could be around about 9 o'clock, could be around about 9:30, could be around about 10 o'clock. We'll bring it to you as soon as we know exactly when it is going to be signed. But obviously great news for everybody in the world, really, who wants to see the killing ending in the Middle East, whether it's from the IDF's attacks on Gaza, whether it's from the terrorism point of view of what's been going on. And the release of the hostages, obviously, would be a massive thing. If we can get all of those people home and all of those people out, it would be absolutely brilliant. And again, Donald Trump, very much misunderstood, very much underestimated, very much a man who would appear to have managed to get something done which nobody thought could ever be done. Extraordinary. Another bit of breaking news as well. 5 water firms are to be allowed to raise their bills by between 1% and 5% more than previously granted by the regulator Ofwat. The competition watchdog has decided. I mean, for those of you who have a sense of humour, you'll be saying, hang on a minute, my water bill's already gone up by about 50%. So what's all this about 1% and 5%? Absolute load of old cobblers. You know, the Ofwat, the regulator, is not fit for purpose, is no use, and should be abolished. That would be my view, because if you know what it's like to pay for a water bill, you will know that in the past 12 months, or possibly 24 months, it will have gone up by at least a factor of 50%. It's absolutely bloody ridiculous what they charge. But let's talk about the NHS right now, because Dr. Lawrence Buckman is here, former NHS GP and ex-chair of the BMA GP committee, because we're told that there's going to be job advisors now put into doctors' surgeries, so that when you do turn up, if you do manage to get an appointment, luckily for you, you will be met by a phalanx of people saying, why don't you get a job, you lazy, dirty, rotten scumbag? How's that going to work? Lawrence, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Listen, it's difficult enough getting a doctor's appointment, but when you do get one, are people really going to want to be assailed by this kind of crap?
Well, this has been tried before. I was involved in the last attempt to do it, and the principle of getting people back to work must be a good one. So the idea, worklessness is bad for you, so the idea of encouraging people back to work is fine.
Yeah.
A few moments consideration will tell you, firstly, where are you going to put them? Physically, where are you going to put them in a building that's already bursting at the seams? Secondly, an awful lot of chronic sick people actually don't go to the doctor that much. Certainly not enough to be encouraged back to work. And the vast majority of people who are chronic sick, not all of them, but the vast majority are actually chronic sick because they're chronic sick. So they can't actually go back to work because they're not capable of work in a whole variety of different forms. And so I think it's a very nice idea. I think it's going to prove to be a very expensive and slightly pointless exercise. But in theory, it ought to be a good thing.
In theory, it ought to be a good thing. I mean, the way that you characterise what sounds like a GP's sort of waiting room, though, a doctor's waiting room, doesn't sound to me like the kind of waiting room that I hear about, because whenever I talk to people, they say, whenever I go to the doctor, there's never anybody there. There's literally nobody in the waiting room. There's nobody sitting there, you know, to talk to, and the place is completely empty. So, you know, maybe it's you know, a myth that there's nowhere to put these guys. There's nowhere to put a desk where somebody could say, would you like to, you know, have an opportunity to go and do something else other than just go back to your home and kind of, you know, get back under the duvet. You know, maybe there is an opportunity here.
I think the idea is fine. I'll just deal with the empty surgery thing. The doctors are usually in their offices rather than in the waiting room. And of course, now an awful lot of work is done online. So waiting rooms are often very quiet, but you can't discuss your inability to work in public, in a public space. You can't do that. It has to be in a private space. And most of the private spaces are very fully occupied. So you're quite right. Surgeries are empty physically, but the doctors are all in their rooms working.
Yes.
So you'd have to find a space for them, and you'd have to get them to come in. And that, I think, is a problem.
But well, I mean, in terms of, you know, and I was obviously scoffing earlier about, you know, I didn't want to go to the doctor and be told I should be going to work in some way, shape or form. But there is a massive problem in this country where we've got many, many millions of people who are off sick, basically, with all sorts of different problems, in many of which are, you know, what you might call mental health related problems, like anxiety, like, you know, nervousness, like, you know, the inability to walk outside and meet other people. You know, how do you cure that?
Well, there has been a process for many years of examining people by the Department of Work and Pensions to actually check that you are as sick as you say you are and as sick as your doctor says you are. So I think there is a process for dealing with people who maybe are claiming sickness when they're not actually sick. But I think the idea of getting chronic sick back to work is fine, except that many of the patients either don't go to the surgery or have illnesses where it's obvious they can't work. Mental health is one of the biggest problems, and much of the problem there are the astonishing waiting lists for patients to be seen for mental health assessments by mental health professionals.
Right.
There just aren't enough of them.
Yeah, I mean, that is the problem. But, you know, I mean, people talk about fixing things all the time, and then really they don't fix them. So, you know, what would you do if you were able to give advice to people?
I think the first thing I would do would be to follow what you've just said, which is an awful lot of people can't work because they have mental health problems. And what we need is a lot more mental health workers. It's actually what I do now, is work in the mental health field. And the number of people who need to be processed to be encouraged to go back to work is far too high for the workforce that's there to deliver it.
Yeah.
We need a lot more people seeing people with mental health problems, of whatever kind of profession they start with.
And so what's the answer, though? I mean, how do you get somebody who's got mental health problems back to work? I mean, what do you actually do? Well,
some of them need medication. Some of them need to start to go out into the workplace. And the idea of try before you buy, getting people back to work temporarily just so they can experience the fact that it's not as anxiety generating as they feared it might be. These things are relatively small pilots. You can't do this en masse because we do not have either the mental health workforce or indeed employment places for them to go. But many people have ended up with what they see as the least worst option of not working. We need to encourage them back to work. So I think the idea is fine. I will want to see it rolled out in larger numbers, and I have a feeling it won't work because there are just not enough people to encourage those who are not working back to work.
Yes. I mean, in which case we're just left with a situation where nothing changes and we have a massive welfare bill which we can't afford to pay.
Well, that's the argument for increasing the mental health workforce to get these people off chronic sick lists. And that takes time. And obviously you've got to find somewhere to put the mental health workers. However you do it, you've got to have the physical space and you've got to have the workforce. That I would be working on people who could go back to work and seeing how rapidly we can achieve that. And if these advisors will be able to do that, great. I suspect there won't be enough of them to make a real dent in what I agree is a very large number of people to be got back to work?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the answer is to hire more people to treat the people that have got no reason to work. But anyway, that's another story. Very good to talk to you. Dr. Lawrence Buckman there, talking about people with mental health problems, saying, you know, the only way to get them back to work is to hire more people to help them get back to work. Huh? Well, how about you hire them to do something which gets them back to work? Maybe they can help themselves. I don't know. You know, you tell me. I don't know the answer to this, but why on earth are we amongst one of the many countries who have now got so many people who apparently can't work because of mental health problems? You know, I wake up sometimes in the morning at 4:20 and go, do you know what? I wish I didn't have to go into work today, but I just get up and go into work. And if I feel a bit miserable, I talk to people about it and they cheer me up. And we get on with it. And we do the show. It starts at 6 o'clock. You know, bing, bang, you're on. That's it. I don't know if I would be able to say I don't fancy it today. I'm feeling a bit vulnerable. I'm feeling a bit sad. I'm feeling a bit unhappy. You know, the taxman's coming after me. You know, somebody smashed the back window of my car. I'm feeling a bit crap. Yeah, every day something goes on. But, you know, get back to bloody work. And the idea that we only can solve this problem by hiring more mental health professionals who can help these people in a doctor's office to get back to work rather than taking medication. I'm sorry, I don't get it. I just don't get it. What's wrong with this nation? Why are we so many people on the sick? I'll tell you why. Because they're bloody well lazy. And they quite fancy the idea of not getting up in the morning. They quite fancy not getting out of the duvet. They quite fancy it as the winter months move along. When it's cold and it's dark and it's not very nice and they're not making much money. And they might as well just stay in bed because the benefits are just as good as working. That's what the problem is in this country, it seems to me. Let's get a voice note from Pete on the Gaza ceasefire.
Bottom line is, Mike, you can't trust Hamas. This is only going to give Hamas the chance to regroup, get everything back together again, get extra funds. All their fighters have been released, haven't they? You know, and all in all, this is going to be a good deal for Hamas, but not a good deal for the Palestinian people, because Hamas are just going to wait a few months and start it all over again, and we're back to square one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, unless you completely and utterly destroy Hamas, and that's what the Israelis have been trying to do for the best part of the last 2 years, you know, what on earth would give you the suggestion that you should trust them? That there they are over the border, you know, 10 miles away, plotting to kill you, and you're supposed to go, that's all right, you know, let's go and get a Nobel Peace Prize, you know. Maybe those nice men in Qatar who are millionaires, billionaires, can come over and, you know, talk to us in a nice way. I'm not sure. Great show, Mike, says Paul in Chislehurst. He says, well done, Donald Trump. Thank God for Donald and what he has done for peace in the world. Perhaps it's time to remind us all of Starmer's warning to us all to be in no doubt the threat Trump poses to world peace. Honestly, Starmer, what a completely useless individual. That's true. Mary in Colchester says, morning again, Mike. I love your show. By the way, Starmer and Neville walking in the woods. Never before has the term don't talk to strangers in the woods been more apt. Imagine bumping into these two weirdos. Well, how about this, right? How about country first, party second? Imagine that if you met these two bozos walking around at the weekend.
Because you only came into politics 9 years ago, and you're actually in a position now whereby you could, in a few weeks, be in the top position in the country. How has that happened?
Well, a lot has happened in that time. We lost our way as a party when we got too out of kilter, if you like, with working people and what they really care about. We had to change all that, bring the party back and put itself in a position to win an election. For me, it's been about duty. What are the guiding principles? In our case, country first, party second, so that was a choice for staff.
Yeah.
Are you making this decision based on what matters to the country, or are you making this based on what you think is going to matter to the party? For the second, I'm not interested.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I just dozed off there for a moment. What a complete and utter pair of plonkers. Starmer and Neville. You know, it's like, what's the name of those two? Stadler, was it Waldorf and, what's his name? Stadler and Waldorf, that's it, yeah. It's worse than that. You know, at least they're funny. These two are complete and utter boring morons. And they're dressed in black, you know, so they all look like they're sort of, you know, up on trend. You know, Gary Neville, the world's worst footballer, you know, who managed to get himself into the England squad because, you know, it didn't really matter. They didn't win anything. Nothing at all, right? The golden generation, nothing. David Beckham, You know, Frank Lampard. They were all in it. Gary Neville. Neville, it was his dad. And the other Neville, who was the manager of Everton at one point and the manager of the women's team. You know, never won anything. Played for Manchester United, but again, was luckily enough to play with some very talented footballers. He was not particularly good. Now here he is, talking absolute and utter balderdash with the now Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, in the woods. What's going on? 7:38.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 7:40. I should say, by the way, I put out a tweet yesterday, which is of the people, the very good people of Manchester, putting up a flag, a couple of flags actually, outside of Hotel Football, which happens to be the Gary Neville Hotel in Manchester, the one that he runs, of course, and doesn't employ people on minimum wage. Oh, no, he just certainly doesn't do that. He's not a champagne socialist at all. 2.6 million views now on that. Just to tell you that, you know, for those of you who think that we're not really winning here at Talk, I just think you should know that the numbers that we are now getting in every single aspect of what we do, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on Instagram, you know, we are literally killing it. So thank you to all of you who are joining us and taking us on the same journey as your good selves. This one from Phil in Scarborough. He says, I don't understand the Starmer-Neville movie. Does Gary think Starmer discovered the Lake District? It sounds like it by what he says in the meeting scene. They're really weird people, aren't they? Should we have another look at the first one? This is, I've never been here before. How did you discover the Lake District?
How are you?
Yeah, good. How are you? Are we good?
Thanks for doing this, then.
No, no
really
problem
good.
at all. No, it's great to see you. And
do you know this part of the world at all?
No. And I was thinking, I've obviously just driven here today. I was thinking, you either go to Wales, you either go to the Lake District, or you go to Blackpool. I went to Blackpool, but I've never been. How did you find this place?
So my parents brought us here every single year when we were growing up. They love the Lake District.
Yeah.
They went on the honeymoon there, and so I've been here so many times.
So you either go to Blackpool or Wales, apparently, if you live in Manchester. What about going to Newcastle or Leeds? I mean, it's nice in Leeds, York, where there's a nice Minster there, you know. You can go to the very nice part, the old part of York, which is lovely. You can also drive south, down the M6. You can go to Stafford, you can go to Stoke, you can go to Birmingham. Why does Gary Neville say you either go to Blackpool or you go to Wales? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with both of them? I don't understand it. They're very weird people, has to be said. This from Lorraine. This is 14 years of vacuous pledges, 14 years of lies. I think she's talking about the Tories. 14 years of inaction. If the media genuinely think one rousing speech from Kemi Badenoch, who has failed to skew Starmer at pretty much every single Prime Minister's questions, is going to cause a surge in Conservative votes, they are living in a parallel universe. I think that's true. There's no point in really talking about what the Conservatives want to do because they're never going to get a chance to do it. Do you know what I mean? John in Bournemouth says this. Mike, I wonder what job Starmer will take up when he finally gets the boot. Will it be an admiral on submarines or a captain with the British Airways or maybe a farmer on a 7-acre plot? Anyway, whatever he does, he will mess that up as well. What an idiot that man is. I love that. That is really good. Yeah, we are ruled literally by complete and utter numpties. Complete and utter idiots. Why on earth does Starmer think being filmed having a chat with a footballer is good optics? Imagine Maggie Thatcher strolling around having a chat with Kevin Keegan. It would never have happened. Difference is she didn't take us for idiots. Keith does, says M in Bath. It's true. You know, I would love it. I would love it if the Tories lost the next election. I would love it. I mean, that's obviously one for the TalkSport fans. Let's talk to Andrew Montford, Director of Net Zero Watch, because it turns out that 5 water firms are going to be allowed to raise their bills between 1% and 5%, which is not particularly green, I wouldn't have thought. But also, we've got some other news. Winter blackouts are coming apparently to us because the risk is getting very, very high. Andrew, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, my apologies for the long preamble there about Keir Starmer's walk in the woods with Gary Neville. I mean, I don't quite know what they're doing and what they're playing at. But listen, it looks great, doesn't it? A winter blackout is coming, and we probably have to be prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I think National Grid, NESO, we should call them now, are trying to put a positive spin on it. I think they're saying that things are a little better than they were last year, but the thing I think people need to understand is that NESO, when they're assessing whether we've got enough power stations, they assess things against an average cold spell. Now, the question then is, what happens if we get a really cold spell? The kind of thing we saw in sort of 2010 and 2011, 2012, we had days, weeks of really, really cold weather. And I think there is a major concern as to whether the UK grid could cope with that any longer. We have a lot of really old power stations that essentially probably won't run for 2 weeks flat out. Now, they'll probably just break down. So if that happens, I think we are looking at major blackouts. You know, we could lose half the country. Now, if that happens when temperatures are, you know, -8, -10, as they were in 2010, people are going to die, and it's that serious. And I think we need politicians to start asking questions about this. You know, ask Ed Miliband in Parliament about whether the grid can cope with this, because I don't think anybody's taking this seriously enough.
No, I don't think they are, because, you know, it is quite an actual, you know, sort of fragile thing, isn't it, the national grid? You know, because when you do get close, as we have done quite often in recent months, to a blackout, or to a brownout, as they used to call it in New York when I lived there, you know, you don't really understand what that's like until it happens. When it does happen, you literally have no control over it.
Absolutely, and you know, we saw this in Spain recently, where you know, they lost the whole country, the whole grid went down, and people died. Now, people were, you know, I think 11 people died, you know, mainly because they had medical devices that relied on electricity, and the backup supplies failed. But if they hadn't have fixed that fault in Spain within, you know, the sort of the 24-hour period in which they did, things were going to get very serious. You have to understand that in a lot of the country, you wouldn't have any water supplies. Okay, Now I'm okay where I am. My water supply is gravity fed, but all over the south of England, you need electric pumps to get you the water. Now, if you don't have water, you're getting into serious problems. You're getting into disease, you know, all kinds of things. Right. So, you know, this is a very serious problem, and the grid is becoming more unstable. You know, I hear things. You know, I know people, you know, who work in the grid, and the grid is probably not able to cope with a very cold spell, but there's also major concerns about whether it can get through the very low demand levels in summer. I think next summer is going to be quite interesting as well. This is just not on the radar in Westminster, I think, and I think it should be. And I would like to see Claire Coutinho asking some very hard questions of Ed Miliband.
Yeah, but isn't the problem with the Tories, though, that they're pretending that they've now converted to not so keen on net zero as they used to be, but they still kind of have got a history of having done all sorts of things, terrible things, which have put us very, very firmly in the net zero firmament.
Yeah, they have a very difficult marketing job, don't they? They are saying the right things now. Kemi said we're not going to do net zero at least by 2050, and they're going to do away with a huge chunk of the subsidies and the carbon taxes. Yeah. That's great, but I think there is a question as to whether voters are going to say, yes, we'll give you another chance, or whether they're going to, stick with reform, as the polls suggest, they have shifted already, and are going to give reform a chance. And, I think to the average man in the street, there are questions to be asked on both sides. Have reform got the policy making machine to actually deliver, and do we trust the Conservatives if they did it? And I don't know the answer to that, but it's quite clear that Ed Miliband is taking us down the road to disaster, really.
Yeah,
it's
no
economic
question at all.
disaster, and it's electricity grid disaster.
Yeah, absolutely right. And meanwhile, we said the breaking news this morning is that water firms will be given permission to actually raise their bills even more. Andrew Montford, thank you very much indeed, Director of Net Zero Watch. This from Glenn, who says plank of the week is going to be tight this week, Mike. We've got Keith, son of a toolmaker, Starmer versus the son of Neville. The only silver lining is that at least Neville's parents had a sense of humour. Great show. Yeah, you might say that. Coming up, Reem Ibrahim's here. She's going to talk about Kemi Badenoch's speech yesterday at Tory Party conference.
Ample evidence, numerous government reports, numerous reports by think tanks that have shown that actually we are not an integrated society. We have effectively ghettos of people from different faith and religion, faith and ethnic backgrounds living separate parallel lives.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:53. I'm Mike Graham. This one from Kitty, who says, "Morning, Mike. Watching the cringy video of Neville and Starmer. Why do they stand still each time two-tier answers one Gazza's question? Is it because they can't multitask? They can't lie and walk at the same time? Well, no, they can't. I mean, it's very weird, isn't it? Two men go for a walk in the woods. You know, what could possibly go wrong? What jokes could you make about it? You know, I mean, we literally started playing this because there was nothing else going on. Reba Brim's here this morning. Very good morning to you. We just thought, let's just play clips of Keir Starmer and Neville, Gary Neville wandering about in the woods in the Lake District. Why?
Oh,
Nobody
God.
knows. You're just back from Tory Party conference.
I am.
And you've just told me you're full of the joys of spring. You thought it was great. You're the first person I've met who's actually said it was great. So tell us why.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, it's interesting. On the Sunday, I thought, God, this is really quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in the Midland Bar, as you know, there is sort of the hotel section, and there is the sort of convention centres part, and the bar is always normally rammed.
Yeah.
So when I arrived on the Sunday, I was really quite shocked, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a depressing few days. And I was speaking on 6 panels, so I was sort of thinking, oh, well, you know, no one's going to show up, so it'll be fine. On the Monday morning, I spoke on a panel on young people. It was the Next Generation Tories, and it was packed full of young people that were really excited to be there. And then throughout the day, I sort of noticed that the room had sort of filled up. So maybe it was just people arrived late on the Sunday, I'm not sure. But it was genuinely, it had a bit more of a buzz to it. Now, don't get me wrong, it was absolutely quieter than in previous years. But people saying that it was completely empty, I mean, it's just totally untrue. And where you really notice where it was filling up is in the evenings, actually. People were excited, and look, I spoke to quite a few young people. I did some Vox Pops and spoke to people, and they said, yeah, things are pretty bad for the Conservative Party. We're sort of facing an existential threat, but I'm here to fight for it. And I sort of thought, well, you know what, fair enough.
So do you think it's a sort of salvageable exercise? Because a lot of people have said to me in recent weeks that, you know, the Tories are dead, they really, the party's gone, it's finished, they're never going to really be a power politically again in this nation, because what's really happened is that Reform hasn't kind of moved to the right. Reform have kind of replaced them, if you like.
Yes, and you know, the Reform have also accepted lots of former Tories, right, which I think is a telltale sign of that. I think that with Reform, it is still a one-man band. I mean, Farage is taken far more seriously. He is taken far more sort of mainstream in that way than he previously had been. Right. However, if Farage left, I'm not sure there would be much party infrastructure at Reform. Whereas the Conservative Party is the oldest political party in British history, and for that reason it has local associations, it has party infrastructure, which I know it sounds boring, but it does actually matter when it comes to fighting elections. So whether or not the Reform will actually be able to completely replace the Conservative Party, I'm in doubt of. I think that basically what's been happening on the continent will probably end up happening here. So a lot of the centre-right parties reduce in size significantly, and actually the more, what we've seen in more radical parties are actually taking up a majority of that. But in the UK, I think it's really interesting from a political realignment perspective. I think Reform are absorbing more of the communitarian, sort of more authoritarian Conservatives, those that genuinely are very, very anti-immigration, of course, but on other policies, but perhaps are a little bit more on the left. So, of course, Reform have said they want to lift the 2-child benefit cap. They say they want to spend more money, effectively, which, of course, would probably mean higher taxes on the wealthy. So it's interesting with Reform, whereas the Conservative Party can carve out a bit of a niche where they can be a bit more free market, perhaps a little bit more on the classical liberal side. Now, I'm not saying that's going to win them loads of votes, but it means that they'll probably end up specialising a little bit more in those two factions that have always naturally already been on the right.
Yes, and because the question really is that how much, you know, can they influence whatever the government is doing? We've seen Reform influencing the government, you know, immigration policy alone. They've managed to get the government to talk about deporting people on a pretty large scale. They've managed to get them to say that they're going to, you know, get rid of foreign prisoners in our jails, all of that stuff. Whereas, you know, when I hear kids, you know, Kemi Badenoch yesterday talking about getting rid of stamp duty, a great idea, because those of us who would like to buy a house would say, yes, let's get rid of stamp duty. But it sort of feels a bit irrelevant, is the problem.
I think the policy, I understand that, but I think the policies that Kemi Badenoch have come out with over the last week or so, even before conference has been really, really quite impressive. I mean, let's talk about stamp duty for that reason. Stamp duty, land tax, is a tax on transactions, right? So every time somebody wants to buy a house, if it isn't their first home, they are going to have to pay a lump sum of money to the government. That is an enormous deterrent to moving homes. Now, the reason why this matters is because we already have a housing crisis. You know, we are already really quite constrained in the amount of supply of housing that we currently have. And so if you're an older couple and you're sort of got an empty nest now, your children have left and moved out, you are maybe going to want to downsize because you can free up some of the equity, have a bit more of a comfortable.
But why would you want to pay £20,000-30,000 in council tax?
Exactly, but when you're going to pay huge amounts of money in stamp duty, then it's going to be a huge deterrent for you to then move out. So what this does do, I think it's going to have a huge impact on pensioners, people that are a little bit older that maybe want to sell their homes and downsize, free up some of that money and be able to then use that money in order for them to have a more comfortable retirement. Those are the people that are really going to benefit. But also, those family homes, larger family homes, will be empty for younger families to then be able to move into. So it really is a win-win for everybody across the economy. I know we saw some very awful communists from the Mirror say that this is only something that's going to benefit the wealthy, which is just completely untrue. Anybody that understands how the market works knows the stamp duty gums up the market and hurts absolutely everybody.
And the way that Rachel Reeves has changed the stamp duty taxes at the moment has absolutely killed off the housing market. You know, everybody's selling. Everybody from estate agents to lawyers to just ordinary individuals say there is no housing market right now. It's literally just disappeared. Anyway, listen, Reem, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. See you again soon. We have got loads coming up in the next hour. We'll bring you more on the walk in the woods with Keir Starmer and Gary Neville. It's a fascinating study in two men with nothing really much better to do than talk to each other about absolutely nothing at all. Plus, of course, we'll be finding out exactly what is going on with this China story and why the spies are now being given free rein to do whatever they want in Britain. This is Morning Glory. Back after this.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 3 minutes past 8. It is, of course, Thursday, the 9th of October. The Prime Minister is in India, by the way. He's talking about business there. We were going to cross live to him a little bit ago, but unfortunately the audio was so bad that we couldn't actually hear what he was saying. You think that they'd actually get the stuff together, for want of a better word, to make it actually sound like we know what we're doing. The India trade mission, I don't understand, really. Keir Starmer told us that we'd already got a trade deal with India. So why has he gone there? I don't really get it. He said we got a trade deal with India, we got a trade deal with America, and we got a trade deal with the European Union. But of course the European Union have said actually that's not necessarily what we think you think is the case, because we're going to be charging you 50% tariffs on British steel, which is going to cost you a heck of a lot of money, and it may well ruin the British steel business. There we are. I don't know what he's going to be signing over in the British steel, over in the Indian trade mission. Is that Mrs. Starmer there that we saw? Is she taking her with him? No, that's not her. No, that's somebody else. OK, fair enough. I don't know whether she's gone with him. I don't know whether we're paying for that. I don't know where David Lammy's gone. I don't know whether the foreign... No sign of Yvette Cooper, by the way, who seems to be the foreign secretary of this great nation of ours. Any chance that we're going to see her? Is she there? Is there a trade minister there? Is old Peter Kyle gone? What about the fake solicitor? He used to be the business secretary, who's now doing some other job. He used to run British Steel, by the way, Jonathan Reynolds. Remember him? Bloke with a beard? I don't know where he's gone. No idea. Let's get a voice note, though, because there is some breaking news this morning. We're hoping there's going to be a peace deal in Gaza. Not, of course, anything to do with Keir Starmer. All organised by Donald Trump. This is Ben with his view.
Hi, Mike. It's Ben in Prague here. Great news if this deal does come through, but my God, the crooked fringe, unshaven lefty lunatics are not going to like this at all. Two reasons. It means they've got to give some credit to Trump, who they will hate no matter what he does, so they're probably actually going to hate the fact that he's causes. And it'll also give them less reason to go out protesting every weekend and wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, very true. Absolutely right. This from Graham in Bushy. Were there any flags on the trees in the woods? We've been playing you some footage today of Keir Starmer and Gary Neville walking around in the woods in the Lake District. Nobody knows why. They did it just before Keir Starmer became Prime Minister, and it's all a bit sort of, lovey-dovey and a bit homoerotic. I don't mind that, but I don't know what they were doing. I don't know why they were doing it. Gary Neville, of course, in the news this week for complaining about angry white British middle-aged men who are apparently the cause of all the problems that we've got. We'll come up to that. We'll talk about that a bit more coming up. Also in this hour, we're going to be talking to James Ball, political editor of The New World. It used to be called The New European, but they decided to expand their borders and go, never mind The New European, let's just call it The New World. Matt Kelly, who runs it, a good friend of mine, said, we couldn't believe nobody had actually copyrighted the term. Jack Elsom, political editor of The Sun, is going to join us as well. Kerry Badenoch got up yesterday and made her sort of, big speech and said she's going to do away with stamp duty, which is a great idea, by the way, but I don't know if anybody cares, because in the end, she's not really running the country, is she? And that is the problem. If you don't go down to the woods today, says Margaret, don't. Gary and Keir are having a picnic. Just bring the icky bucket and a violin. Gary, man of many talents, now interviewing a plank. Very true too. Mike, today, Damon Wigan says this. I've seen two donkeys in that video. They're called Gary and Keir. Plank of the week. Thank you very much indeed. Donkeygate seems to have disappeared, by the way. I'm not quite sure what happens about that. We'll try and revisit it, because there are two stories, actually, that have disappeared off the face of the earth since conference season started. One, Morgan McSweeney and the £740,000 donation that he hid and didn't tell anybody about. And then, secondly, the donkey field that Keir Starmer said that he bought in a trust and gave to his parents until the day they died so they could stroke donkeys. Because it made them feel good. Very strange. Very weird. Let's talk to James Ball, political editor of The New World. James, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. A big break for Keir Starmer it will be, I would imagine, if we manage to get this Gaza peace deal off the ground. We're told that they're going to be signing it sometime between 9 o'clock, possibly this morning, maybe 10 o'clock. I mean, he hasn't had a lot to do with it, but he'll be able to bask in the sort of the glow of it, won't he?
I think there'd be a palpable relief for absolutely everyone. You know, it'd be good news for Keir. I think it'd be good news for pretty much anyone in the world. I think the issue and the sort of hesitation is, you know, the old phrase, it's the hope that kills you.
Yes.
This would be the third ceasefire deal on this conflict. The first two did not stick. There are bigger promises on how many people would be released, how quickly things would happen, and crucially, how fast the hostages would be home. We think there's 20 left alive.
Yeah.
Supposedly, they could be out as early as Monday. I would love this one to be real. I think a lot of people would, whether you like Trump or loathe him.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's rooting against it, other than perhaps some of the people who are signing the deal on both sides. So I think it's mostly nervousness, right? I want this to be real. I'm just not sure I think it is.
I know, that's the problem, isn't it? Because you always wonder, and I said this at the time when it was sort of first floated, that, you know, why would Hamas actually go along with something which effectively ends their ability to do anything, ends their ability to run anything, ends their ability to run Gaza, ends their ability to be a terrorist organisation, and they just have to sort of disappear into the shadows. It doesn't sound like they'd agree to that.
No, and they haven't, brutally honestly, they haven't cared very much about Gazan civilian casualties in anything they've done until now, and I don't believe they've started. And so, you know, and on the other hand, there are a lot of reasons that Netanyahu's been anxious about ending this war. He doesn't want to have the internal investigations into October 7th. His far-right sort of flank in his coalition doesn't want to. And so, do I think that Hamas has had a personality transplant? No. Do I think Israel's government has? No. But maybe everyone's recognising it's got to end somewhere. You know, that's the only hope we can have looking at this, because there's a lot of reasons to look and feel sceptical, but maybe this time's different.
Yeah, maybe. Let's have a look at Donald Trump speaking with hostage families on the phone about this deal.
Mr. President, we believe in you. We know you've done so much for us over the past, since you became a president, and even before that. And we trust you'll fulfill the mission until every hostage, every 48 of the hostages are home. Thank you so much. Blessed be the peacemakers.
God bless you, Mr. President. God bless America.
Thank you very much. You just take care of yourselves. The hostages will come back. They're all coming back on Monday.
I mean, the interesting thing as well about this story, James, is how it's affected British politics, isn't it? Because, I mean, you know, we saw the weekend, Keir Starmer begging, if you like, on his sort of hands and knees, the protesters who ended up protesting anyway, asking them not to protest, asking them not to do the whole kind of, you know, Free Palestine march in London. They did it anyway. I wonder how much of this will continue if the peace deal is done. Will the protesters stop protesting? Will Keir Starmer be able to get some kind of political gain out of it? Or will it continue to be a kind of massive thorn in his side?
I think for as long as the conflict pauses, the protests will pause, and hopefully some of the awful, awful heat will come out of it. You know, we've seen a very, very visible rise in anti-Semitism. We've seen some rise in Islamophobia and in polarisation, full stop. I think if the heat comes out, that really helps, especially as Keir Starmer has no control over this. He is really not a player in the ceasefire. In reality, we barely supply any arms to Israel. We do not have a good relationship with that government. And so this is something where, other than how to respond to the protests and how far to enforce things like the prescription on Palestine action, which I think has descended into utter farce, whatever you think of that group, this is something that's just run and run for the government, over which it has absolutely no control. And so, you know, I know people are cynical about these protests. I think people are very, very distressed by the awful scenes that they see from Gaza. I think if those scenes stop, if there is a prospect of some peace, it will help at home. I think the fact that it helps Keir Starmer is perhaps the least important part of the deal, but I think it would help him somewhat.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's not unimportant to people who live in this country. It's certainly not unimportant to Jewish communities. After what we saw in Manchester last week, a lot of Jewish communities saying, we feel really, really nervous. We feel really, under attack. We feel as though we can't go out. I mean, I've spoken to friends of mine who are Jewish who say, I've got an elderly mother. She doesn't want to go outside. She's worried that, if she does, she's going to be in some danger. And so they've got to get a grip of this. They've got to get on top of it. And they've got, Shabana Mahmood has said that she's going to, introduce new rules which will make it illegal for people to march around. And I think most of us would be slightly squeamish about all of that, because you kind of go, well, what else are you going to ban, And so I think it's quite a big quagmire, if you like, for Starmer.
I think it absolutely is. I think all they can control is their response in the UK, and I don't think they've done as well as they could at trying to take the heat out, take the bitterness out. I have heard Jewish friends talk about, the proverbial suitcase in the hall in a very literal way, people wondering how long it will be safe to be here. I've had more than one say, I think Stephen Bush in the FT yesterday wrote, he's sort of never felt less sympathetic to Israel and never felt the need for it more as a British Jew.
Yeah.
And I think, the idea that people don't feel safe in this country, don't feel like they can belong in this country when they desperately want to and have for such a long time, is a tragedy. And I think the government, it's always going to fall on that. On the other hand, there are limits to what you can do in a polarised time. I actually thought they got it right last weekend. I thought the duty of the government was to say, should you come out on this weekend? Is this the time for it? Could you not show some sensitivity? Could you not reflect on the horror of the recent attack? The stretched resources and not protest without banning it. I think sometimes the right thing for the government to do is to say something and then to not actually curtail the right, and to leave the choice on the organisers and to leave that moral dilemma on them.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that
it makes them look look really awful at that point, doesn't it?
Exactly. I don't think people help their causes by doing it, just as the people who chose the 7th of October to do university walkouts and campus walkouts. I think they damage their own cause in that way, and I think sometimes the government's job is just to use the bully pulpit and to frame things in those ways. Anytime I see a crackdown on protest, I get very anxious, and I don't think that's British, and I don't think that protects any minorities either.
No.
Ultimately, social sanction matters too.
Yeah, and now that we sort of have got through the conference season, we've pretty much come to an end. We've seen the Greens and their crazy conference. We've seen Reform and their sort of, razzmatazz, conference with a lot of, bang, bells and whistles. We've seen the Labour Party conference, which was kind of a bit weird because it was riven by, rumours that Keir Starmer was going to be ousted in some way, shape or form. The Tories kind of, doesn't really seem to matter to anyone. We come back to normal, I guess, in Westminster, if there is such a thing. What is Keir Starmer's likelihood of, survival, I suppose, if for want of a better word, because, he's got people coming at him from all sides. We've got Lucy Powell probably going to become the Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, by the way. And we've still got the Morgan McSweeney scandal sort of swilling around. We've got all sorts of other problems that he's got. None of that has gone away. So what does he do when he comes back?
I think there's a bit of a depressing return to reality for government MPs, and I mean that's the vibe I get speaking to them. They actually, I think, had quite a nice time at conference. I think the expectations were so low and the mood was so low that actually a few days meeting up with each other without obvious disasters cheered them up a bit. It felt to me like the Tories had a similar experience. But nothing's actually changed.
Right.
The polls are still dreadful. The local elections are still coming. The economic fundamentals are bad, and there's a lot going on in the world. And so I think there is a bit of a sort of return to reality with a bump. And I don't think anyone has a sense that the government has a plan out of this. They seem to be a lot like Rishi Sunak's government was day to day. They seem to be managing the latest crisis and hoping something comes up. and nothing came up for Rishi Sunak, and nothing is likely to come up for Labour. When you're in the government, things change if you make them change. And it's very, very hard to point to any big swing that the government's taking that might result in much bigger growth or that might really change the public mood. They seem to be hoping that lots of little changes will do something big. And, you know, maybe that pays off, but it doesn't feel like it to me.
No, indeed. James, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. James Ball, political editor of The New World, formerly known, of course, as the New European. Let's have a look at this. This is Labour in Chaos. This is a film that's been put together with a load of clips that we've seen before by the Tories. Check it out.
Moved in next door to you. Hit by a series of disastrous resignations and sackings. His transport secretary resigned for fraud. His anti-corruption minister forced out under corruption allegations. His homelessness minister quit after making her tenants homeless. Angela Rayner, gone. Caught evading tax. And Peter Mandelson sacked for his links to notorious paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Chaos, chaos, chaos. This is Keir Starmer's government. Open borders, an economy in free fall, a weak prime minister, mired in scandal. No plan for Britain. Britain deserves better.
Britain does deserve better. I mean, that's not a bad little montage they put together there. By the way, I don't think I've mentioned this yet on the show. I think 1,000 people came here yesterday on small boats. I heard that last night when I was listening to talk. 1,000 people, more than came in the previous week. Before that, 57,638 now is the migrant tracker since Keir Starmer got in. Absolutely ridiculous, right? Incredibly large numbers of people coming into this country illegally, who will then be put up at His Majesty's expense, or if you like, taxpayers' expense. No more than about a tenth of those people will be held in detention and possibly sent back to France. So far, I think we've sent 10 people back to France. Meanwhile, 34,396 have arrived in 2025 alone. It is incredibly ridiculous, isn't it? And when we talk about, you know, what Keir Starmer has come back to, will come back to after he's been in India, what we will see is that all of the same problems still exist. You know, Morgan McSweeney will still be in trouble over the £740,000 loan or donation that he didn't declare. We'll still have a problem about Keir Starmer and his Donkeygate scenario, whether or not he actually put things in a trust which he shouldn't have done, even though he denied doing it. We still have the problem of incredibly high levels of immigration. As I say, 1,000 people alone coming yesterday. We'll still have the problem of the economy going down the gurgler. 84 billion now is the black hole that is facing the Labour government. That's how much money we actually owe, right? And so 20 billion plus is being borrowed every single month. We've got the accountants looking at Rachel Reeves' budget, which is going to come out on November the 26th, which is only, what, about 7 weeks from now. And it's all looking terribly, terribly bad for Keir Starmer. You know, if there is a ceasefire deal done in Israel with the Gazan scumbags, Hamas, 251 Israelis will have been abducted on October the 7th. Most of them have been freed under previous ceasefire deals. However, 48 still being held, of which we believe 20 might still be alive. So that means that 28 people are dead, who have not been returned to their homelands and to their families. We hope that that might happen over the course of the day today, if possible. The Prime Minister said it's a moment of profound relief that will be felt around the world. The UK will support these crucial immediate steps in the next stage of talks to ensure the full implementation of the peace plan. Of course, if the peace plan can be enacted, if there can be some kind of ceasefire, if Hamas will release all the hostages, it may well be that, you know, at least some families and the rest of the Israeli population can have some succour and some, you know, peace finally. However, what will happen then? Will the Israelis still go after the Hamas terrorists and the killers? Because I think they should. Should they wipe them out? Absolutely. Should they raise Gaza to the ground? Yes. Should they start all over again? Sure. Should they talk to the Palestinian Authority, who are in the West Bank, and get them to maybe rule the whole of Gaza? Yes. Should they have elections? Yes. Should they deal with terrorists? Should they let the terrorists continue to build their weapons and get rockets that they can fire at Israel? No. Should they give them any kind of, succour? Should they give them any kind of credence? No. These people are savages, right? They need to be wiped off the face of the earth. And if it means killing more people, then I think Israel has to do it, because they live next door. It's like having a next door neighbour who constantly throws, broken bottles into your garden. At some point or other, you have to stop them. At some point or other, you have to say, enough. We're not taking it anymore. And that's what Israel's been doing. So, in my view, peace deal's great. Get all the hostages out and then go and absolutely destroy them. That's what I would do. There's a talk.
Is the problem? I mean, if you'd only seen one white person, you'd only seen one white person. What on earth is the problem with making that observation? I mean, quite frequently when I'm on the tube in London, I'm stunned by the lack of the so-called diversity that we're always hearing about being such a great achievement of our society. Quite often, I am the only white person in the tube carriage. So what? That's just a fact, Am I not allowed to say that because that's somehow racist? No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah. This is Mike Graham. It is 8:27. This is the home of common sense, of course. It is Morning Glory with you all the way through until 10 o'clock. Donald Trump coming out and saying this is a great day for the world today because, of course, it looks like there is going to be a ceasefire deal signed by around about 9 a.m. this morning, possibly 9:15, could be 9:30, could be 10. We're not quite sure, but it certainly looks as if it's going to be done this morning. Whether it's done before we leave these parts, I don't know, but certainly it'll be done this morning. And obviously a magnificent achievement by Donald Trump to have got this peace deal done. The big question is, I suppose, is whether Keir Starmer will be able to claim any credit for it. But let's talk now to Jack Elson, political editor of The Sun. He's got a great big piece in the paper this morning apropos of the Kem Badenoch speech yesterday. Kem on you Blues is the headline. It says she's got a colossal task, just like the Manchester United boss, but Stamp Duty Act is great for a kick-off. off. Yesterday, Kemi Badenoch got up and said that she wanted to get rid of stamp duty, which I think everybody would think is a great idea. However, I suppose the question is, Jack, a very good morning to you. Will it cut through in any way, shape or form for the long term for the Tories? Is it that more of them sort of, throwing caution to the wind and just saying anything that makes them look popular?
Morning, Mike. Yeah, I think the latter's probably a bit more likely. I don't see in the long term this really shifting the polls. I was in the hall yesterday for her speech. It was well delivered, which you can't always say about Kemi Badenoch. It hit the right notes on things like immigration, crime, the economy. And I do actually think this stamp duty announcement will cut through with voters. It's retail. It's probably quite a popular policy, getting rid of it. The problem is that it feels... the Tory government has never felt so far from power. Many people will see this, like it, but go, so what? It's probably never going to happen. And, often with these conference speeches, as I write in The Sun today, they can be a bit like, bubbles frozen in time, totally detached from what is going on actually in the real world. Both Starmer and Kemi Badenoch were cheered to the rafters by their respective sides, but they're going to come back down with a massive crashing reality check in Westminster when they return because, one, Nigel Farage is still miles ahead in the polls, and two, I think that really the budget is probably going to be the biggest political event of this year. Now, I do genuinely think, because I think the budget is going to be dreadful, that the Tories have an opening there because they increasingly see the economy as the battleground they want to fight the next election. And if Rachel Reeves whacks up taxes even more and we get more into this low-growth, high-tax doom loop, which Labour are perpetuating, then maybe people will look for economic competence, and that's where the Tories can really make their pitch.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a funny old week, hasn't it, really? Because reform, in my estimation, have never been quieter. We haven't really heard very much from Nigel Farage. I mean, there was a poll, I think we spoke about it earlier in the week, at the weekend, in which it showed that Nigel Farage was now the most likely person to be wanted as a Prime Minister over Keir Starmer, who's lost about 10 points since March. And we mentioned that earlier. But it's almost as though they've taken a decision to let the Tories have their week, if you like, have their time at a conference, and just wait and watch their sort of demise, if you like.
Yeah, I think after the defection of Danny Kruger about a month ago, people thought, well, if this is the one a month before conference, surely they've got someone up their sleeve to wheel out and totally steal the Tories' thunder. We had a sort of a trickle of councillors, on the Tuesday, I think it was, but it didn't really shift the dial. And on the Wednesday, I spoke to a senior reform official and said, are you having a big defection today? They said no. And I said, well, are you putting out a response immediately after Kemi Badenoch's speech? And they replied saying, why would we? She's totally irrelevant. There is no point giving her the time of day, and actually, letting her fade into irrelevance is probably even more damaging than her being attacked. And I think that is probably the calculation they are making. I think the issue with that slightly is that you do want to be seen to be making your case out there in the media, and Nigel Farage has done very well by basically just being on the airwaves almost every single day. Whereas if you look over the summer, Labour and the Tories really sort of left the pitch and left it open for reform, and that's when they really started to charge up the polls. And so, they have been a bit quiet, although, we do come back to Westminster next week, and presumably then they'll get some more stuff out of the trout.
Sure, and people have pointed out to me and some of these people who have pointed out to me are actually Labour supporting individuals. Keir Starmer comes back from India, and he hasn't really disappeared from view any of the things that were a problem before all of these conference scenarios happened. Morgan McSweeney's still sort of stuck in the mire about the £740,000 donation. That's not gone away. He's still got a problem with his backbenchers. He's still got a problem with Lucy Powell possibly becoming the deputy leader of the party, which will put pressure on him because she doesn't like him very much. He's still the most unpopular Prime Minister that we've ever seen. So, it's kind of back to where he was, I guess, a month ago.
Yeah, here we go, Mike. I'll give you a little exclusive nugget. I heard that actually at the Tory party conference, some of the Tory officials actually met with the Electoral Commission, who go there to actually attend some of these events, and they said they put forward a pretty robust case for the Electoral Commission to reopen their investigation into Morgan McSweeney. Now, whether they will or not, I think it remains to be seen. The Commission seemed pretty robust about the fact that they were not going to do so. But you're right, clearly that's still in the mix. But I think more importantly is this budget coming down in November, because it looks to be absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And for Rachel Reeves, who stood up in the House of Commons last year, raised taxes by 40 billion, said that it was a one-off and her hand was forced by Tory recklessness to try and do that again, just will not wash with the public. But the problem is, she's totally boxed herself in. The bond markets won't accept any more borrowing, rightly so. But her party will not accept any spending cuts whatsoever, especially in the eye-watering welfare bill. Growth is on the floor, and which means that the only thing which she can do is put up taxes. Now, that is not going to be purely taxes which do not hit ordinary people, as they say, because any economist will tell you that if you put up taxes on businesses or the rest of it, it gets passed down to ordinary consumers, people that read my paper and watch your show, and they're going to be the ones that pay the price for all of this. Now, that is where I think the Tories seriously have some sort of opening, because even after Liz Truss and the chaos that came with that, if you still look at like the sort of the polls, and I was looking at the YouGov tracker yesterday, they are still the most trusted party on the economy, and not, to be fair, most parties don't have a very good standing on the economy in the minds of the public, but the Tories are at the top of that tree. And so they can, I think, have an opening, really, to try and use the budget as a way of getting back on the front foot. And I think that will be their opening more than any conference speech.
Yeah, interesting. We came in this morning and thought, there's not many great stories around today. There's no kind of overarching theme. So we dug out this rather bizarre Walk in the Woods video, which involves Keir Starmer and Gary Neville, just before you'll remember it, just before the election took place. I think it was in sort of June of last year. Have a look at this, right? This is them talking about Rachel Reeves, and I think you may get a wry smile. Check it out.
How do you really comfort people on tax? Because that is the biggest challenge to any Labour government. You can't manage the economy.
It's one of the reasons I appointed Rachel Reeves to the role of Chancellor, because she's obviously got Bank of England experience, and she's got sort of iron rules as Rachel. She will not sign off anything unless it's fully costed and fully funded. Tax levels now are the highest for 70 years, so we can't just go and pull the tax lever. That's why we've said no increase in income tax, in national insurance or VAT. You've got to show, I understand, it really matters.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's easy to make fun of them, but I'm going to do it anyway, because that is the most ridiculous conversation I think I've ever seen, where he talks about Rachel Reeves having, iron rules about the economy. She's already contradicted herself several times. She's already said that she wouldn't come back with more taxes. She's going to have to do it. She's already said that, she's never going to have to do what she did last year. She's already going to be contradicting that. The whole thing is a massive car crash. And there's Keir Starmer there talking about what he thinks is going to be the most fantastic chancellor ever.
Yeah, he said we can't just pull the tax lever.
Yeah.
I mean, Keir Starmer has grabbed the tax lever with both hands, wrapped his legs around it, and leaned back as far as he can.
Exactly.
This is going to be a budget which is going to put taxes up even more, we understand, and it will be totally unpalatable to the public. Not only because they said before the election they weren't going to raise taxes. They then put up taxes on national insurance, and they did some weird sort of warped verbal gymnastics to try and justify the fact that they only meant they weren't going to put taxes up on employees and not employers, even though employees will feel the hit from that, obviously. Then they said at the last budget, well, obviously we have to do this, but it's only going to be a once in a parliament decision to raise taxes. And now they're coming back for more. We understand Rachel Reeves is very angry with the Office for Budget Responsibility because they have decided to embark on a review of productivity of the last few years, and they are likely to downgrade estimations by, around 20 to 30 billion. Now, Rachel Reeves clearly is left in a tighter spot with that, but This was a chancellor who was absolutely worshipping of the OBR when they were a thorn in the Tory side, and now that they're a thorn in her side, she's quite angry with them. So maybe she regrets being so fawning over them in the past. But yeah, Mike, it's going to be a pretty miserable few months, and you would imagine that that is where the Tories and Reform really try and grasp the nettle.
Yes. And finally, Jack, I mean, who would you say sort of winners, if you were having a scorecard on sort of conference season, winners and losers, you know, anything extraordinary that happened? Anybody moved up further than you thought they would, or moved down further than you thought they would?
Do you know what? This is going to be... you're probably not going to like this answer. The three main parties, Reform, Tories and Labour, I don't really think it shifted the dial. I think probably Kemi, in the fact that, you know, in terms of seeing off any immediate leadership threats, you know, she is now sort of G'd up her grassroots, because I think that she probably wouldn't have really lasted beyond May, and there's pretty dismal local elections. She's now bought herself a bit of time. Interesting. I do not agree, you do not agree probably with a single word he says, but Zach Polanski has actually probably put himself as the far left candidate now in elections. He totally seems to have trampled over your party in the shambles that is. And you know, he's very good on social media. You know, he's pretty you know, articulate. I think that most people would be absolutely petrified and terrified with the things he wants to do. But you know, in terms of him rallying his base, you know, he hasn't had a bad conference.
Okay, interesting, yeah. I mean, he's certainly been much more visible than anybody knew about him before, so we shall see. I mean, I can only ever see him as the man that used to hypnotise women to get bigger breasts. So, you know,
I'm not sure he's going to win any votes, but, you know, he definitely caused the stir, didn't he? He knows how to grab a headline.
Absolutely. Jack, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Jack Elson, big piece of The Sun today, political editor of The Sun, of course. Let's get a voice note from Hev.
Morning, Mike. It's Heb from Kent here. Yeah, well, it's nice to see Neville and Starmer walk in the hills and whatever wherever they are. But it's changed, or it's going to change, because they're going to be seeing windmills and solar panels everywhere soon. So enjoy it while you can, lads.
Yeah, enjoy it while you can. That's a very good metaphor for the rest of your life, actually, under these bleeding governments, you know, no matter who they are. Let's have a look at what they're saying in Sun Letters, shall we?
Letters from The Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
As you might expect, people in The Sun are not happy with the European Union because they listen to our show and they know why. This one from Sue in Northumberland. She says, another day, another balls up by the hapless Keir Starmer, who has been let down by his friends in the European Union. His so-called EU reset, which betrayed Brexit voters, has not stopped the bloc planning a whopping 50% tariff on British steel. Can that man do anything right? He gave up several of our Brexit freedoms, only to be rewarded by a slap in the face by the ungrateful EU. She says, so much for Starmer's attempt to improve relations with them. Brian in West Yorkshire says this, great news, Starmer's negotiations with France and the EU have probably resulted in a 50% tariff on our steel. He says, has our PM got any ideas on business? Apparently not. The man is clueless apart from how to let illegal immigrants in and give them handouts. Well, I'll tell you what, I disagree with you there, because he's got a lot of views on business, right? He says business an awful lot of times, and let me show you an example of that. Here he is talking about business in India.
This looks fantastic, and it's really good to see you. And the first thing I want to say is a massive thank you to all of you for being here in India with us, because this is the biggest trade mission that the United Kingdom has ever sent to India. And I think it's really good evidence of just how strong the relationship is and how many business opportunities there are. And we've got businesses, some of the biggest businesses doing deals and business with India, some of the iconic businesses, small businesses as well. So we've got all sorts of businesses here. We've got great academic institutions represented, brilliant universities that are already doing great stuff here and about to do even more of it. And then we've got art and culture, film, drama, sport as well. So a really important and big delegation. So thank you for being here. There's a real buzz about it already. I hope you felt that before we got on the plane and on the plane and all the way through.
What's he talking about? I mean, lots of business here. Business. I brought them all with me. Yeah, they've all come. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, well, you paid to bring them. They haven't paid to come, right? Universities, businesses. They've all gone to India because the Prime Minister goes, come to India. All right, then. Oh, it's a bit of a jolly, is it? Yeah, absolutely. It'd be great. A couple of days, you know, a couple of receptions, you know, some champagne, some free pakoras, a few samosas occasionally. People walking around with, you know, Sikh kebabs. It'd be great. Lovely. Yeah, Mumbai, yeah, where they have the film business, you know, the Hindi film industry. Yeah, great. Brilliant. Yeah, business. Business. Yeah, business. What the hell is he talking about? The businesses were going before he became Prime Minister. They'll be going long after he's no longer Prime Minister. It's got nothing to do with creating those businesses. All he's doing is giving Indian businesses a chance to come to Britain and rip off British business so that they can get more tax breaks and make more money for India business. And not for our business. It's none of your business. You stupid plonker. Rodney! 8:44.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 8:46. I don't know where the time is going. We're nearly in the final hour of the show. It looks like quite a nice day, actually. The sun's come out and the clouds have risen so that it's not as cloudy as it was yesterday. Mike, I guarantee that in some way or another, Keir Starmer will attempt to shoehorn his way into this peace deal in Gaza at the last minute to try to bask in some reflected glory. Perhaps he'll delay his return from India and stop off in Israel on the way back to greet the hostages on their release, as if those poor people haven't suffered enough. Well, do you know what? I don't think he's going to be very welcome in Israel, given that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, has previously said that, you know, he's been very disappointed by the way that Britain and some other Western countries have behaved, particularly when it comes to recognising the Palestinian state. Greg in London says, I think it's very naive to think the protests will stop. These are the Palestinian ones we're talking about. They've been making it clear for several months already that they do not care about Palestinians or about peace. This is about Jews and Israel and also about destroying the West. Absolutely right. Let's talk now to Marie van der Zyl, former President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, on the moment of the signing, supposedly this morning, of a peace deal between Hamas and Israel. Marie, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. I mean, it's quite apposite, really, that you join us at this time. We're told around about 10 o'clock this morning, we think, possibly before, possibly after, there is going to be a deal signed between the parties in Israel and Gaza. What do you make of it? What do you think of it? And what are you hoping for?
I'm absolutely praying for peace. It's absolutely a crucial step that we have peace, for the hostages to be released and for the suffering to end. But the crucial factor is going to be its implementation. We want to see a fair, just peace for everyone, the suffering to end, and for the conflict not to continue to be imported here in the UK. But I cannot wait for that deal to be signed and for the hostages to go home.
Yeah, I mean, we can only hope that not only does that mean the end of hostilities in the Middle East, but also maybe the end of hostilities here, because I speak to Jewish friends of mine who are terrified now living in this country, particularly after what happened in Manchester last week, and particularly just in general, walking around, you know, wondering whether somebody's going to come at them, walking in the streets of London or Manchester or of Edinburgh, wherever it may well be. How do you personally feel as a Jew living in Britain today?
I wasn't surprised by what happened. I was only surprised as to when or how it happened, and I think it's absolutely tragic to feel that you have to be frightened because you're a Jew. And I'm appealing to the great British public to really call this out, because everyone must know that those people were murdered in Manchester because they are Jews, and people have to understand this is just Jew hatred, and we've got to find a way to come together and to make sure that this conflict is not on our streets and that we can all live together harmoniously. And it's a very frightening situation for a community that's been traumatized since the events of October 7.
Yeah.
And anti-Semitism rapidly rose. Even by October 10, 3 days later, it was at a record high. And that was even before Israel had a chance to respond. And that level of anti-Semitism is still hugely high in the first quarter of this year. The Community Security Trust figures show that. And these marches, they need to stop being allowed to be in places where they have repeated threats to the community. No community should have to live in fear.
No. And I mean, to be fair, we know as well as you know, the first demonstration about Israel happened on the night of October the 7th in London, outside the Israeli embassy, as you say, before Israel had even done anything at all. So, I mean, you can't really wipe away this anti-Semitism. I mean, do you worry that the people who are so virulently against Israel and so racist, really, against Israelis in Britain and Jewish people in Britain, do you worry that that can't ever really be now done away with, if you like?
I am really worried, of course I am, but I think that we need to work on bridge building, faith initiatives. We need to find a way to come together. I'm always an eternal optimistic person by nature, but we have to all live here together, and the public, the British public, know what's right and wrong. And for the benefit of all of us, we all need to find a way to stop all these marches and to live together in peace, and for all minority communities to be able to go to pray in their place of worship without fear of being killed and attacked. What is this country going to come to if we can't achieve that? But the British public have to become on board. The politicians can't just do all of this. We can't just criticise this person or that person. It's also got to come from bottom up.
Yes, I agree. Couldn't agree with you more. Great to talk to you, Marie. Thanks very much indeed. Marie van der Zyl, former President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, speaking there about this peace deal, which we believe is going to be signed sometime this morning, around about 10 o'clock. Could be a little bit earlier, could be a little bit later. We'll find out, of course, in the coming hour, because it's coming up to 8 minutes to 9. We'll let you know. This one from Malcolm in Hampshire, who says, "Morning, Mike. I totally agree with your sentiments on the peace deal. I would say this: long-term peace is more than a cessation of hostilities. An evil ideology survives and will continue to be a menace to the civilised world. I doubt whether the Palestinian cause will disappear from our streets." Well, that's my worry as well. And one from Elsa, who says, "Good morning, Mike. If anyone thinks the protests will stop if the hostages are released, they are deluded. The anti-Semitism will be exposed, but I've no doubt it will continue. I stand with Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu." As do I. Thank you very much indeed. We will keep you informed as well, of course, of any developments between now and 10 o'clock when that deal is eventually signed, hopefully, and all the hostages are released. We believe 20 of them are still alive out of 48 that the horrible scumbag Hamas people are holding. This is Talk.
can lower them. I have decided that we can't, because that simply wouldn't be enough. Conference, the next Conservative government will abolish stamp duty on your home.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense. It's the one place to get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Matt Vickers coming up in the next hour, live from College Green. Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, of course. We'll ask him what he makes of Kevin Badenoch's plan to get rid of stamp duty. Isabel Oakeshot's going to join us as well. She can give us a critique of where the Tories are now and what happens when they've all come back from their holidays and they go back to Parliament and they actually have to start making laws again. Right now, though, let's go 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Lloyd Canfield joins us, Chelsea reporter at The Sun. Thank you very much indeed, Lloyd, for joining us. Good morning. Harry Maguire's new Man United contract is big in the news this morning.
It's a big one, yeah, and Man United's insistence to stick with Ruben Amorim as well. Maguire, of course, has been a dependable centre-back for Man United. He's been the captain for a while. And yeah, he's been rewarded with a new contract. It was largely rumoured that he'd be leaving Man United, but they seem to be insistent on sticking with him at the back.
Yeah, absolutely right. Man United's season sort of doesn't look any better, though, than it did at the beginning, does it? I mean, they don't seem to have any sort of inspiration at all. I mean, is there any hope that they're going to change tack and they're going to start winning?
It's a difficult one with Amorim because the whole reason they're sticking with him is to try and give him some time to implement his system that he's been very rigid with, and that's why they brought him in, is because of his tactical fluidity and his ability to play that system and get results as he did with Sporting. They're trying to implement that at Man United, and they believe he needs time to be able to do so.
Right.
They've obviously spent a lot of money this summer on the attack in particular, and that does seem to be slowly coming to fruition. Benjamin Sesko's been really good for them up front. But they're going to stick with him. They're going to give him time. There's been a lot of calls to sack him and to get rid of him. But Sir Jim Ratcliffe has insisted that they're going to give him time.
Yeah. England-Wales playing tonight in a friendly. Thomas Tuchel says England are going to be World Cup underdogs.
Yeah, we'll see about that. I'm going to be at the game against Wales tonight. England have been in really good form of late. They've only lost one in their last 5. Unbeaten in their last 5 games against Wales as well. But England are missing some very big names, the likes of Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Reece James, Cole Palmer even.
Yeah.
They're going to be playing a very much kind of second-string team. Harry Kane is expected to miss it as well, so it'll likely be Ollie Watkins up front. It'll be interesting to see if England can pull that off.
Cool. Well, we'll look out for that. We'll watch it on TalkSport, I'm sure. Thank you.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 9. It is Thursday, the 9th of October, and we are here, of course, for the duration until 10 o'clock. Lots of you have been in touch, lots of you have got things to say about Keir Starmer this morning. He's over in India talking about business. He says that he's going to do business over in India. He says it's not about giving more visas out, it's just about encouraging business to do more business in Britain. And yeah, apparently he's going to be bringing more business to Britain, which is going to come from India, which will mean, of course, that people in India will profit from the business that they do in Britain. It's supposedly it's going to have some knock-on effects in the British economy, but as far as we know, it's not really going to do an awful lot. And also, he's going to be giving preferential rates to Indian companies to charge less for their national insurance and to employ people for less than the minimum wage. So they're going to be bringing people here from India to work for Indian companies in Britain, where the profits are all going to be siphoned off into India. So, not quite sure he needs to have taken all the people that he took with him. But he's been talking about it, of course. He says that in India, business means business. We'll play you a little bit of that. Also, we've been saying this morning that he's been walking in the woods with a man by the name of Gary Neville. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows what they were doing, but they were sort of, doing this kind of homoerotic scenario where they're wandering about together. They might as well have been holding hands, talking about how great a Labour government would be with Gary Neville asking him questions. There they are, dressed in sort of, similar outfits, somewhere in the Lake District. Gary Neville bizarrely says at one point, when you live in Manchester, you either go to Blackpool or you go to North Wales. You don't go to the Lake District. I mean, who would ever say that? Who would ever say something like that? Why couldn't you go to Newcastle? Why couldn't you go to Leeds? Why couldn't you go to Bradford? Why couldn't you come a little bit further south and go to Stafford or Stoke, or maybe even Stratford-upon-Avon if you fancied a bit of the Shakespearean scenario? Or how about Birmingham? Or even, get on a train to London. Probably the Avanti West Coast line would be broken and probably on strike or something, but, you could have a go. Why do you have to go to Blackpool or North Wales? What's wrong with him? What's he talking about? And they're walking around in the woods like two members of New Order who've only just realised they've been released from prison in some kind of time warp. Very weird, very odd, very strange. 0344 499 1000. The big story this morning, of course, is that peace may well be broken in the Middle East, because it looks as though there will be a peace deal signed, according to Donald Trump, by about 10 o'clock this morning. It will be signed by Hamas, the leaders of Hamas, and it will be signed by the Israeli government, which would hopefully mean the release of all the hostages, which has long been awaited for many, many a year. It's been going on for 2 years now. People have been held underground in horrible, ghastly conditions in tunnels. 48 hostages still to be released. We believe 20 of them are still alive. 28 of them are no longer alive. But hopefully the Israelis will be able to get all of them back. In exchange, they will be releasing a whole bunch of Palestinian prisoners who have been held in Israeli jails, including, of course, the masterminds of the October the 7th atrocity. So, I mean, it's a big day, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be talking about that. 0344 499 1000. This is, of course, Morning Glory. We're going to be talking to Isabel Oakeshott. We're going to be talking about Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party. Front pages this morning very much full of Kemi Badenoch's view of the world. She made her big speech at Tory Party conference yesterday up there in Manchester, in which she basically said she would do away with with stamp duty. Which is a great idea, by the way. You just wonder whether she'll ever be leader of the Tory party long enough to see it actually come to fruition. Let's ask Matt Vickers, who is, of course, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. Matt, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
Nice to see you. Your voice sounds a little bit sticky. Obviously, you've been at conference. I was told by many people up there different stories. One narrative was that it was a bit quiet. Not so many businesses were there as there would normally be. Not so many members as there would normally be. Others have said to me, the young people up there were quite enthusiastic. What was your experience of it all?
We go to these conferences and the press wanted to tell one story and they wanted to find some quiet room somewhere at some point when there was several events going on. The reality is thousands of people went, hundreds of businesses went. There was a disproportionate a group of young people there, a huge crowd of youngsters who were having a whale of a time, who wanted to get stuck in and who wanted to see a Conservative government and see what we had to offer.
Yeah, and what have you got to offer?
Well, I think it's been a hell of a week for the Conservative Party. You know what? We got that grubbing last year at the general election. Times have been tough. And what did Kemi say? She said she was going to go away, listen to what's been said, do the detail, and come back with a plan. And that's exactly what she's done. That plan for stronger borders, stronger economy, stamp duty. That stamp duty announcement is actually fantastic for our economy. The thing with stamp duty is it affects the efficiency of the housing market, it affects the efficiency of the labour market, and the IFS is the biggest drag on economic growth. It means that if you've had kids, you need a slightly bigger house, you can go on and do it now without paying thousands and thousands of pounds more. The same if you get a job and you want to move, you want to aspire to do something else that requires you to move house. It's a thing that just holds people back. Actually, we're unleashing that. We're going to give people the freedom. You already get slammed with council tax when you get a slightly bigger house anyway. Why the hell should the state grab thousands of pounds more from you? Really positive news, but it wasn't the only announcement this week. We said we're going to put 10,000 more police on the streets. We said we're going to treble the number of stop and searches that are undertaken. We said that we are going to, axe business rates for small businesses on high streets under £100,000 rentable value. We're going to save the high street, we're going to save the Great British Pub. Lots and lots of positive news coming out. We said we're going to double the number of high-level apprenticeships. Huge amount of stuff come out of the Conservative Party conference, real policy base. Looking forward to getting stuck in, looking forward to taking that pitch to the British people.
Yeah, but you're taking that pitch to the British people, but you can't really go anywhere with it, can you? Because at the end of the day, it's the best bill in the world. Even though I would like to see a general election coming up very soon, you're not going to probably see one for quite some time. And so by the time you even get there, Kemi Badenoch might not even be the leader.
I think that for all the talk this week, I think Kemi did an absolutely cracking job. I think you saw Party United. Of course, the press will want to find the people who might say something or might have there's a line wanted from the press, but the reality is people came together. And the other thing about the Conservatives is not only have we got a leader who's firing on all cylinders, we've got a great team of individuals. There are other parties who might be a one-man band. There are other parties who don't do the detail. This week, we did the detail, and there's one big difference between our party and all the other parties. They tell you what they're going to spend, they tell you all the wonderful things they can give you, but they never tell you how they're going to pay for it. We've said that we are going to save £47 billion. We've said that we're going to do that by reforming welfare, by removing benefits from foreigners, by making sure the only people who get mobility cars are people who actually need them. We've said that we are going to slash the size of the civil service, which grew under the pandemic by a third and has never really gone back in the box. Real sensible reductions in public spending. But not only are we going to reduce spending, we are going to make sure that half of that spending, half of those reductions, for every pound we save, half of it is going to be spent paying down the national debt. We know the damage that Labour are doing to our economy with their jobs tax, by slashing business rates relief for small businesses, with this wacky red tape monster that is the Employment Rights Bill. It means that businesses are closing at the fastest rate since the world economic crash. It means 14% more people are unemployed, out of work, unable to provide for their families. There's a real plan there. It's costed. We're going to save this economy and sort it out when Labour are finished.
All right. Well, let me pick you up on one thing, right? You said the party's united, right? As soon as Kemi Badenoch said she was going to leave the ECHR, which when I interviewed her just before she wanted to become leader of the party, she wasn't sure about. She now is sure about it. That's fine. Half of the Tory party wets came out and said, oh, we don't want to do that. That's absolutely not for us. That's not the sort of thing we should be doing. So the party's not united around leaving the ECHR, never mind anything else, is it?
The party is very, you know what, this is a big issue, huge issue that we need to hit head on.
Yeah, but you don't agree, but nobody agrees about it.
Kemi has said if people don't sign up to this agenda, if they don't get on board with trying to solve this huge challenge that we've got, then they will not be able to stand as Conservative candidates in the election. Kemi set out a direction.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like an agreement. Yeah, it doesn't sound like you're all agreed, though, does it? No, that's my point.
I'm sure you would be able to find a voice of dissent to it. The reality is our parliamentary party went away, they've heard what was on offer, they're going to get stuck in, they're going to get stuck behind Kemi and get this thing delivered. We need to do it because this country needs the Conservatives to come and sort the economic mess that has been unleashed by that Labour Party.
Well, yeah, you say that. Listen, Matt, I've got great confidence in you personally, and I think you're a very decent guy and a decent politician. However, you had no point in saying the party's united around anything if you can't decide on whether you should leave the ECHR or not. You can't just go, well, we're united because we say we are. Hang on, we say we are, and if you don't like it, you're banned from being an MP.
We have agreed the Conservative Party will leave the ECHR. There's a document there, 200 pages of legal advice. We haven't just tweeted about it or done some press conference. We've done the detail, we've done the work. The guys in there are signed up to it. They're going to back it. It's going to happen. I'm sure you can find some former MP or some councillor somewhere who disagrees with it. That is what the Conservative Party is going to do. We're going to leave the ECHR. We're going to strengthen our borders. We're going to get control of our economy and fix that broken economy so people can get jobs, they can get on with life, and you know, they're not being taxed to death to pay for people who won't go to work. It's the right way forward.
Okay.
He's going to deliver
and
it.
don't forget, though, that the people who are now currently sitting at home watching this programme, unemployed, because they want to be unemployed, they don't want to work, they did that under the Conservative government. The Conservative government allowed them to take time off and not go to work at all. There are people who haven't ever worked in this country, and many of them became of age to work during the Tory government in the last 14 years. You've also said, you know, the civil service grew during the pandemic. It didn't just grow. People were appointed to the civil service by the Tory government, and that's why there's more people now there than ever.
However bad unemployment was, it's significantly worse since Labour came to power. The number of people signing on in sickness and incapacity benefit is 3,000 a day. It's gone up by 50%. These lot have only been in office, what, 18 months? It's absolutely ridiculous. It's off the charts. It's 10 times worse than it was. It's getting significantly worse. And the reality is, when the civil service grew, it was largely as a result of the pandemic. The pandemic created all sorts of bizarre work. It grew by a third. It's now time to take that third back off. They're not a third more efficient. It doesn't have the challenges of the pandemic. It's the right thing to do. Kemi wasn't the leader. I wasn't a minister. This is our plan. This is what we're going to deliver.
OK. What's your view of net zero?
Well, Kemi's made it very clear. We think net zero at all cost is a mistake. The reality is, are there opportunities in emerging green technologies? Of course there are. There are jobs we can get in there. Of course we should seek to be cleaner and greener when we can. But you can't do that at the cost of people who are struggling to make ends meet.
But will you do away? But will you do away with any? But will you do away with any net zero targets then?
We've said the climate change bill should be repealed. We've said that the legislation that was put in place is a mistake. This ridiculous eco-zealotry of Ed Miliband, who is completely obsessed with nutty green stuff.
Well, so was Boris Johnson.
But
hang on, so was Boris Johnson. The reason that there were net zero targets put in place was because Boris Johnson put them in place.
Kemi has said that we'll repeal that climate change bill.
So are you saying that you would?
Sensibly.
Are you saying then that you will repeal the idea that petrol and diesel cars will have to be done away with by 2030? Are you doing away with that?
We are repealing elements of the climate change, well, the climate change bill in its entirety. We need to go back to the drawing board on this, because the reality is, and it's not black and white, you can't just say, actually, everything should be green at all costs, or that we should not care about doing the green stuff.
Why not?
You need to do it, but you need to do it in a way that's affordable for people at home. You need to
so what's the story?
Take up the opportunity.
All right, so what's Tory policy on petrol and diesel cars then now?
Well, we'd already wired that back under Rishi, hadn't we? Because wasn't it 2030? We said 2035. You need to be able to get the infrastructure.
All right. So what's the policy now? Well, what's the policy now? Is it 2030? Is it 2040? What is it?
We've said that we'll repeal the climate change bill. We'll go back to the drawing board and actually we're just going to do the things that work for the people at home, that work in terms of cost. You have a look at the climate change bill. We're repealing it and starting again.
Matt, it's a simple question. What's your policy on petrol and diesel cars? What's your policy on petrol and diesel cars?
Our policy on petrol and diesel cars hasn't changed at the conference, essentially. But what we're saying,
so you're still doing away with. So you're still doing away with petrol and diesel cars by what year?
No, we haven't said that at this conference. We said we'll repeal the climate change bill. Of course we want to see people using electric. Of course we want to see people doing more
Can you not just tell me what if I've got a petrol car? If I've got a petrol car, at what point does it become a petrol car that I can't drive? When can I not buy a petrol car? What year?
I'll tell you what, you can keep your petrol car. I'll give you that as a policy. You can keep your petrol car, that's a fact. We haven't said that we're banning or taking petrol or diesel cars.
No, but you're phasing them out, though.
We've said that we should try to stop people.
But at what point am I not going to be able to buy a new petrol car? At what year?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. There is incentives there in place.
Right.
But I don't know.
OK. All right. Listen, Matt, good to see you.
We know that what I'm saying...
Go on.
Good to see you.
Carry on. Oh, he hasn't heard me.
Oh,
I think he's.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still there. No, tell me. Give me your final thought. Go on.
My final thoughts on green cars.
Yeah.
My final thoughts on green cars are that we should obviously encourage people to use the electric stuff, but it comes with its challenges. It comes with its challenges in terms of how far you can get and all those other things. The reality is that we need to do things in a sensible way. We need to let the private sector do some of the heavy lifting. If they think there are green, super-duper cars that people should be driving that reduce emissions, that's a really good thing. But the reality is we can't do things that cost people shed loads of money.
Yeah.
People at home need to be able to make informed choices about when they want that electric car, when it's worth doing it for them, not about enforcing these things on people. Encourage positive technology, encourage people to be greener and cleaner, but do not batter people with extra costs.
Okay then, Matt. Thank you very much indeed. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about my petrol car now. I'm not quite sure if I can buy a new one or not under the Tories. No idea. Anybody got a clue about what he meant there? I don't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. Crikey. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer can tell us about business.
I think it's really good evidence of just how strong the relationship is and how many business opportunities there are. And we've got businesses, some of the biggest businesses doing deals and business with India, some of the iconic businesses, small businesses as well. So we've got all sorts of businesses here.
Business. These bloody politicians, man. I'll tell you what, it drives me insane. Let's talk to Isabel Oakeshott, a sensible person, finally, to talk to in this first hour. Isabel, very good morning to you.
You're just making my morning.
Oh,
Matt Vickers, whatever he is, deputy chairman of the failing Tory party. I was thinking for the first sort of half of that interview, I was thinking, oh my God, well done, that man. I mean, you really are managing to put a kind of chirpy face on an absolutely bleak outlook. There he was all chipper, he was all cheery. He was saying that the party's united and Kemi's brought it all, she's got it all back under control. And then you started getting into the detail of the how long can I keep my petrol car for?
Right.
Now, I don't think every politician in every role should necessarily be expected to be on top of every aspect of their party's policy. So what he should have said there pretty early on is, I don't know. You know what? I've been really focused on 100 other things. Yeah. Made light of it. Instead, he tried to bluster his way, didn't he, for an agonising kind of 5 minutes with different forms of I don't know, but I'm not going to admit it. And you finally nailed him. And then he, by mistake, took his earpiece out. That is going to go viral. It's a masterpiece in how not to deal with a question that you don't know the answer to.
It's like all of these things. I didn't expect to get all of that nonsense out of him. I just asked him a simple question, because I know that they used to have a policy which said that by 2030 you will no longer be able to buy a petrol or diesel car. Now, for somebody who likes cars like me, you probably not quite as enthusiastic as I am. I know Richard Tice has made fun of my foreign car, especially when the number plate fell off the back of it because it wasn't fixed on properly. And the point is that I love a petrol and diesel car, and I want to know whether I can still buy one when this one is about to come to the end of its life, right? So I want to know if I can continue to buy a petrol and diesel car up until 2030, 2040, whatever, right? But they don't have a policy. They don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, a few years ago, 2030 seemed a long way off, didn't it? But it's actually not seeming so far off now.
No.
And actually, I might surprise you, Mike, and say what I like is old cars.
Yes.
I have never had a new car in my life.
Right.
I always buy clapped out old cars, and I buy them until they basically die a death. It's the cheapest way of motoring. So as of now, I've got a 2010 VW, which is diesel.
Right.
And so that's the sort of vehicle that's probably completely condemned by every environmentalist in the world.
Excellent.
Doesn't do much mileage. Out here in the Middle East, I'm really looking forward to getting a properly mega gas guzzler. Because that's what they do out here. I want a proper 4x4 that's going to trundle over the desert.
Absolutely. Yeah, because petrol there costs about tuppence halfpenny, doesn't it?
Well, they actually bring the petrol to you if you're feeling lazy. You can actually get someone who comes in a van and fills up your car.
Right.
Anyway, this is all by the by. I just think that I think people are fed up of politicians talking policy wonk and weirdo language. How about just saying, you know what, Mike, you got me there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not the expert this morning on this particular bit of our policy. And it's the same with Keir Starmer. Business. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Just please talk to people in a normal fashion. Lose it.
Exactly. But of course, the underlying threat of what the Matt Vickers didn't say is that actually they haven't really changed their policy on net zero. I've spoken to Kemi Badenoch about this, and she said before to me, well, of course, we'll have to re-examine our policy on net zero, but obviously everybody knows the right thing to do is to become a green economy. And I'm sorry, I don't agree. And nobody does. A lot of people that I speak to, a lot of our viewers and listeners, don't agree that the right thing to do is to go towards a net zero economy. Because actually, it's going to cost us an awful lot of money. And we've got a bloody great big oil field in the middle of the North Sea, which Donald Trump has identified as a very good place to start. And we're not using it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what millions of voters have done is re-examined their policy towards the Conservatives. That's the reality. And they can stand there in a crowded room, a small room, and feel as if their party is going to survive what is, most people acknowledge, an existential threat from a proper Conservative with a small c party. And they're deluded. I listened to Matt Vickers talking about, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's not even in a way any point in going into the detail of those proposals, because people are not going to forgive them for all the reasons why we are where we are. We don't want to hear how they're going to correct their own mess. And it just rings so untrue and so hollow for them to be complaining about what Labour has done over the last year and a half. Labour, of course, has made things very much worse. But what Labour has done is build on the disaster that the Tories themselves created.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, this is where it brings us all back to sort of, conference season's now over. Reform conference, I think you would give a very big green tick to. Labour Party conference, not so much. Andy Burnham came, went and disappeared. Keir Starmer really didn't make much of a muchness about anything. Tory Party conference, very strange and sort of, haphazard and empty, and I'm told really, really boring. I mean, don't even mention old Zach Polanski and his breast fondling in the bad brown stuff, and no sign of Rachel Reeves recovering from her terrible black hole. It's 84 billion now, and Keir Starmer still unable to kind of get his way out of the mire.
Yeah, I mean, the big themes now, you're right, Parliament's finally returning after what seems like an eternal recess. They have their summer holidays and they come back for a couple of weeks and then they go off again.
Yeah.
The big theme now will be the long run up to the latest budget I can ever remember, scheduled for the very, very end of November, isn't it? Or some I don't know the specific date, but it's very much later than it would normally be.
Yes.
And the small boats crisis, one in, one out. Nobody seems to be talking about that.
I was hearing last night 1,000 people came yesterday.
Yeah. So that's not going to go away. We need some updates, don't we, from the new supposedly hard as nails Home Secretary about how one in, one out is going. I can provide that update pretty simply. It's an absolute disaster. It's a waste of time. And still they come. So those are going to be the key things, I think, in coming weeks. I think Kemi Badenoch has maybe slightly solidified a very wobbly position, but I don't think she lasts much more of the distance. They did manage at least to semi-hold it together at their conference. There was only one story I noticed about a kind of row between Alex Shelbrooke and some other Tory MP I hadn't heard of. But by and large, they managed to keep what is a very small and muted show on the road.
Yeah, I think so. And nobody really cares, until old Matt Vickers came on my show, and now they might care about, what an idiot he made of himself. But there we are. It's a slow news day. 27 minutes past 9. Isabel, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Isabel Oakeshott there. Let's get a quick voice note from Daniel on the ceasefire.
Hi Mike, this is Daniel calling from Tel Aviv. There's cautious optimism here. Of course, it's not going to be over until hostages are back home with their families. But isn't it weird that all the self-appointed pro-Palestinian activists, the people screaming ceasefire now for the past 2 years, all of a sudden they're like nowhere to be seen? It's crazy, the amount of virtuous signaling and phony, deranged madness around it. Now that there's an actual peace plan on the table to end the war in Gaza, they've gone completely quiet.
Great point, Daniel. Thank you very much indeed. Daniel calling in from Tel Aviv there saying, you know, they're cautiously optimistic. But, you know, it's true. All of these people, because you know why. The people who were calling for a ceasefire before and calling on Israel for committing genocide in Gaza, they've all gone very quiet because they don't actually want a ceasefire. What they really want is the destruction of Israel. That's what they want. And that's why they don't take part in these conversations about a plan for actual peace, because they don't want it. That's the tragedy. Talking about digital ID, here's John in Blackpool. Morning, Mike. If digital ID was for the migrants, only then maybe it would deter them. Cheers. And one from Quinn in Rotherhithe says, good morning, guys. As far as digital ID goes, what Starmer never has grasped, they work for us. Nobody rules if no one obeys. I certainly won't be taking the ID fast. No, I think a lot of people won't be either. And Graham says, from Bushy, what's the betting that Starmer and Lammy will try and take some credit for the Israeli-Gaza peace deal? Yeah, I know. Starmer will be all over that like a rash, you know. But nobody's going to believe a word he says. Why would you? He's Keir Starmer. He's a liar. It's 9:28.
We don't know what Arif Ali Rafiq is pleading to this charge, but you know you know what everybody thought. These are both retaliation attacks, religious retaliations, revenge attacks for the Islamist terrorist assault on the synagogue last Thursday. Well, at least in one case, we have reason to believe that that assumption, jumping to that conclusion, was wrong.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:31 here until 10 o'clock, of course. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be along before that to tell us what's coming up on her show. Lee from Hampshire says, morning, Mike. Kemi and the Tory party could promise us the world, but the problem is, why should we believe them? And Ivor says this, Mike, you watch. Keir Starmer will start claiming that it was his recognition of Palestine that led to the peace deal. Well, he can say that, but nobody's going to believe that, are they? I mean, nobody's that stupid, surely to God. I think it's very naive to think that the protests will stop, says Greg in London. They have been making it clear for several months already that they do not care about Palestinians or about peace. This is about Jews and Israel, and also about destroying the West. Yeah, we'll come back to that. A couple of you have got things to say about stamp duty as well, which is good. Let's talk to now Councillor Steve Tuckwell, though, Cabinet Member for Planning, Housing and Growth at Hillingdon Council. I'll tell you why we're talking to him, right? It turns out, you might remember this story from a while back. We spoke to some people who came here from the Chagos Islands into this country to demonstrate about why they didn't want the British government to sell off the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, right? It turned out that their pleas fell on deaf ears because, of course, David Lammy, Jonathan Powell, Keir Starmer, Lord Hermer and all of those other complete and utter traitors to this land, I would say, decided to sell the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, even though Mauritius didn't particularly ask for them to do so. Mauritius now have been in receipt of so much money as a result of us selling the Chagos Islands to them, because I don't understand how this works, but it's the only sale that I've ever seen where you sell something to somebody but they don't give you any money, you give them money. So it's like, I've got this phone here, right? It's an iPhone 15. It happens to be a replacement iPhone 15 because I had my original iPhone 15 stolen, as you might remember. I'm going to say to you this, I will sell it to you for £200. But that's not £200 that you have to give me. I'm going to give you the phone and give you £200. And that's effectively what happened. So we give you the Chagos Islands and we'll give you billions and billions of pounds. They gave them so much money that Mauritians now don't have to pay any income tax for the rest of the decade because they've got so much money. I don't understand the deal, neither does anybody else, and neither do the people from the Chagos Islands. They came here to demonstrate against it, right? They came into Heathrow, but bizarrely, despite the fact that we will welcome any Tom, Dick or Harry or Mohammed who comes here on a small boat, put them up in a hotel, we weren't able to support them. So it now turns out that Hillingdon Council have had to support them, and the bill has now reached £1.2 million. So let's talk to Councillor Steve Tuckwell and find out what's going to happen. Next, Steve, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Good to be on this morning.
Yeah, good to talk to you.
Couldn't have put it better myself, your intro.
Yes, I mean, this is a ridiculous situation, isn't it? That, you know, we've got people who came here from what is effectively, was anyway, a British protectorate, couldn't be admitted as sort of legal residents of this country, so had to be put up sort of in an emergency way by your council, couldn't be given a hotel, couldn't be treated like illegal migrants, and you're now £1.2 million in the hole.
Yeah, as I said, it absolutely beggars belief, Mike, that we find ourselves in this position here in the London Borough of Hillingdon. As you know, we are the home of Heathrow Airport, and since last July, we've received over 158, nearly 160 families. That's over 600 people that have turned up at Hillingdon door from the Chagos Islands. Now, that has cost the Hillingdon taxpayer a whopping, as you said, £1.2 million. And that's not going to finish there. It's going to grow. We're estimating it's actually going to cost the Hillingdon taxpayer around about £2 million this year. This week alone, we've had 40 families arrive. I was at the processing centre in Hillingdon that we had to quickly set up. We've diverted a lot of council officer time away to process these applications, and it's diverting, you know, very, very precarious resources away from core services to deal with our statutory obligation. And I'm calling on the government to step up and fund us fairly for this national policy, as you said in your intro, which has been a complete disaster.
Yeah, exactly right. And so are these people from the Chagos Islands wanting to live here, or are they sort of wanting to go back home but they just need subsistence while they're here?
No, they are coming here to live. The government are providing us with funds for the first 10 days only. And as we know, you know, when they come and settle, you know, they have British passports. They are British national citizens. So, as I said, we have...
But that's the crazy part of it, isn't it? They just have a right to stay here.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that that's absolutely right, and we will step up and accept our statutory obligations, but we need the national government, the Labour government, to fund us fairly. It's not right, it's not fair, it's not acceptable that the Hillingdon taxpayer is actually now paying for disastrous national policy.
I mean, it is incredible, isn't it? And what sort of hope have you got that you will get anything out of central government, or you will get anything out of the Foreign Office?
Well, we're getting sort of stony silence, and yeah, we are working with local authorities. But not only have we got the Chagos Islands, Mike, we've also got the asylum pressures, the Home Office dispersal agreements, where the government will say that they are clearing out their hotels at a rated notch, which they are. But what they're not telling you is where those asylum seekers end up. And again, invariably, they will end up at Hillingdon Council's Civic Centre front door. And that is an additional £5 million that's costing the Hillingdon taxpayer just this year. If you turn that clock back several years, it's probably £20 million that this government owes Hillingdon Council, in addition to the Chagos Islands.
And I mean, in fairness, I don't know whether you've got any migrant hotels in your regional Hillingdon Council, but I mean, if you do have, you'll be getting those paid for by a company like Serco or Clear Springs, whatever it is. You know, they'll be getting paid by a government contract to put illegal migrants up who don't have British passports in your area, all expenses paid.
Just to make your viewers and listeners aware, Mike, Heathrow Airport has the largest concentration of hotels in the country, and Hillingdon Council has 4 times the national average of asylum seekers of any local authority. The largest concentration of asylum seekers in London, around between 2,000 and 3,000 asylum seekers at any one time. Now, that is a huge burden, and we are calling on the Labour government to step up and provide the sufficient funding. It's not right, it's not fair, and it's not acceptable that the Hillingdon taxpayer has to stump up for national policy disasters.
That is incredible. 3,000 migrants, illegal, staying in hotels around Heathrow. Extraordinary. Listen, Steve, let's keep in touch. Let's talk about it and see what we can do. Steve Tuckwell, Cabinet Member for Planning, Housing and Growth, Hillingdon Council. He's got people from the Chagos Islands who want to stay in this country, who have got British passports, who are not being given the help by the central government of this land that people who have come here illegally are getting. It's absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely ridiculous. Henry Bolton's here, OBE, International Border Control Expert. Henry, have you ever heard anything like this before?
No, Mike, this is just, you know, if you want to... it's a much overused phrase, isn't it? You couldn't make it up.
I know.
If you'd asked me, you know, a few years ago whether any such situation as this could arise, then I would ask you, you know, what you've been drinking.
Yeah.
But it's mad. It's utter madness. I mean, right at the beginning of this piece, you talked about, you know, the fact that we're sort of, you used the analogy of selling your phone and paying somebody to take it from you. I'll explain this, because actually the madness of it's even in a sense worse, because the Chagos Islands, British overseas territory with a huge base, a strategic military base there for us and particularly for the Americans. Now, the Americans were going to oppose us giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius unless we had an agreement on the base. Mauritians said, well, look, you know, if you're going to give these islands, that's all well and good, but, you know, there are islands and you want to have access to a military base on them. Well, you're going to have to lease that base off us.
Right.
So that's what we're actually paying them for, so that we remove American opposition. So there's some sort of agreement there. So we're giving them land with a massive, great military facility on it that we need and the Americans need, and then leasing that base back off them. And in this whole process, the poor people of the Chagos Islands have been trying desperately to get decent, you know, proper conversations going with the Foreign Office. They've been blocked every which way. They have even turned up at meetings with the Foreign Office in the Foreign Office building itself at King Charles Street to be told, right, we're not going to talk about the future of the Chagos Islands.
Right.
Well, the whole thing is utter madness. So these poor people, you know, have had no real sort of channel into the government. The government has not listened to them, has not wanted to talk to them, and now is having, you know, the poor citizens of Hillingdon are going to have to pay for this. It's you know, there are so many scandals surrounding this government, Mike. I cannot quite grasp that.
But also, is this also a sort of a stain on the Home Office? Because the Home Office appears to be involved in all of these scenarios, right? I mean, we just heard from the Councillor Steve Tuckwell, that they've got thousands, possibly as many as 3,000 illegal migrants staying in the Hillingdon area, because Heathrow obviously has, you know, a very high concentration of migrant hotels for one reason or another, right? But that's the Home Office that are making those decisions. The Home Office are paying these ridiculous contracts to people like, Clear Springs and to Serco. You've then got the Home Office also making a decision on people who have got British passports, who come here from the Chagos Islands, who have got a right to be here, but who are treated as if they are somehow criminal. But so the criminals get treated like they're not criminals, and the people who come here who are not criminals get treated like criminals. How does that work?
I know, and the whole thing is just such a mess. The asylum seekers that you talk about in the hotels, okay, people are being moved out of the hotels, but as your previous speaker, the councillor from Hillingdon, was saying, they are just being moved into other accommodation. It's called dispersal accommodation in local council areas. Now, it's not saving money. It's not doing anything apart from appeasing people who've said, right, we need to close the hotels, whilst there's not been any other plan in place to accommodate these people. Now, these poor people from the Chagos Islands who've come over, they sort of fall between the stools because they're not really Home Office responsibility,
right,
because they're not asylum seekers. They're not being processed by the Home Office. They're full British nationals, British citizens, so they are effectively homeless people. That falls on the council to deal with, but it's a result of a central government decision that the government can't explain. And it's worth mentioning with that, why is the government doing all this? Well, it's a very interesting question, isn't it? Because we've also got the Chinese spy case that has just fallen apart. Christopher Cash, a parliamentary researcher formerly, Chris Berry, a teacher, both prosecuted and taken to court for spying for China. Well, that case has fallen apart because the government refuses to acknowledge that China is a threat, despite countless security service, MI6, Met counterterrorism, and everybody else, and parliamentary committees reports all saying that China is actively pursuing hostile espionage against the United Kingdom. The government's refusing to do this. Now, who's behind this? It's the Attorney General, Lord Hermer.
Lord Hermer. Yeah, his name comes up all the time in these cases. Listen, I've got to run, Henry. I've got to go. Sorry, we're nearly out of time. It's coming up to quarter to 10. We'll get you back on soon to talk more about all of this. Keir Starmer, of course, over in India, hasn't got a clue what's going on back here, does he? Richard in the Costa del Sol says, what a load of rubbish. So you go for a walk in the lakes and two planks happen to bump into each other with a camera just passing by. That's, of course, Keir Starmer and old, what's-his-face, Gary Neville, finding themselves together in the Lake District. Do you come here often? No. What do you fancy? Should we go around there? Yeah, all right then. 9:44.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:47. 10 more minutes to go until Julie Hartley-Brewer comes along to tell us what's going on in her show, 10 till 1, of course. We're going to speak to Matthew Talbot in a minute, who's got some things to say to us about homeless people in the UK. But first, here's a quick voice note from Bruce on job advisors.
Just setting up for another long day at work in my 60s. Worked all my life, paid taxes all my life. And I listen about these lazy gits lying in their beds in their early 20s, 18s, 19s, 20s, up to the 30s. They've got no work ethic. They never will have a work ethic. And unless somebody gives them a kick up the backside and gets them out. And that guy you've just had on, talking about mental health, you have to work through sometimes mental health by getting out there and getting involved in stuff and giving yourself a purpose in life. Languishing at home in bed all day is no good for anybody.
Bruce, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a very complicated issue, isn't it? Because some people, you know, are seriously mentally ill and they can't do anything and they need help. Other people, I think, probably not quite so bad. Matthew Talbot, very good morning to you. Morning. This is an area that we can sort of squeeze in, I suppose, in addition to talking about the homeless problem in this country. You know, obviously many people who are homeless have got mental health problems. They'd probably like to work, some of them do. And do they get enough help? I don't know.
I think it's about what you do with the help and what sort of help it is. I think, particularly when we look at the welfare bill at the moment, which is just growing and growing, I'll upset some people. My nan used to talk about how people could sometimes be mollycoddled and aren't prepared for rejection and tough times in a way. And we need to normalise resilience a little bit. And I wonder whether some of the payments that are made in PIP and other sort of benefits for those that are suffering maybe more mild symptoms of anxiety could be diverted into, would they benefit from talking therapy more and other stuff to get them through that and then back into work and whatever else it might be.
I mean, this government talks about trying to do that, but I'm not sure they've got the right attitude to it, because they've said already that the people they're going to try and get back to work won't include those who say they're suffering from anxiety. And, you know, I get it. I mean, I've got teenage kids, you know, sometimes I rouse with them about all sorts of things and say, you know, you've got to be more resilient. You've got to understand, you know, oh, I applied for a job, but I didn't get it, and, you know, I'm no good. It's like, well, no, you're not no good. You just didn't get the job. That's it. You know, go and get another job. Go and try for another job. You know, try and just keep trying until such time as you get succeed. And I don't know whether we were. I mean, you and I are not exactly the same age, but I mean, in my time when I was a teenager, you just kind of kept going. You just going, well, all right. Well, you don't like me. I'll go and try that guy over there.
That's what my mum used to say to me.
You know,
she says, if you don't ask, you don't get. You got to put yourself out there. She says, if you're not out there, people don't know. And listen, it's hard. I've been on both sides. I'm one of the 1 in 4 that struggled with depression.
You've been homeless, haven't you?
I've been homeless. I struggle with depression. I think a big part of it is feeling like you've got a purpose. And I think that's where maybe the struggle begins, because you've not got a job. You maybe feel like you haven't got a purpose if you haven't got stuff outside of that and other things.
And it's easy then to get into that pattern of like, I haven't got a job, I don't have to get up, I'm just going to carry on. And also I'm getting a benefits system paying me not to work, and I'm all right.
And in many ways, because the benefit system is broken, it's in very unfortunate cases you can earn more, unfortunately, not working than you can do working. That's the travesty of it.
Right, exactly right. The story today is about the number of homeless people who died last year, apparently reached a record high, which is pretty shameful for this country, really, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's 1,611, and the real kicker here is that's devastating on all levels, but 11 of those, that 11 were kids. I think 6 of which were babies and hadn't reached their first birthday. This is it's a travesty of human potential, Mike. These are human lives that could go on and do great things, and we'll never know, because we're resigning people to spending essentially their whole childhoods in many ways sat on the end of a bed in one room, eating their teas off their laps in front of a TV with nothing else to do. And there's got to be a better way of doing things than what we currently are now. I'm trying to preach housing first, which is what I do in my role as a senior fellow at the Centre for Social Justice. Centre for Social Justice have identified that you could double the amount of housing first places in this country from around 2,500 to 5,500 for 100 million quid between now and the end of this Parliament. The way you do that is scrapping civil service relocation funding. Civil servants can get paid up to 14 grand to relocate out of Whitehall somewhere else. The other way is to take 5.5% of the rough sleeping prevention and recovery grant and 20% of the homelessness transformation fund. That money's already there. The only bit you're taking that's new is essentially the civil service stuff. Housing First flips the current model on its head. What we currently do in this country is treatment first. So we can try and get you into accommodation, mate. You're currently homeless, but if you're a squaddy with mental health issues, you need to go and get some counselling first, or maybe if you've got an alcohol or drug issue, you've got to kick that first. My argument is always, it's hard enough to do that anyway. It's going to be even harder if you're on the street. Therefore, Housing First does what it says on the tin. All you have to do is stay with the tenancy. The only stipulation is you have to maintain that tenancy. So we'll give you that shelter, you get that housing, you get that accommodation, and then you get the wraparound care to come with it. It's a dual process, and it works. So the last Conservative government, in fairness to them, put forward pilots, went on for 3 years in Manchester, Liverpool and the West Midlands. 80 to 94% success rate of people staying in those tenancies and some potentially moving on to private tenancies.
And of course you say that, you know, the money's already there, but, you know, when we see how much money we're spending, and I don't want to make it an either or, but the money we're spending on the migrants coming in who are being given hotel rooms and being, you know, we're spending billions and billions of pounds, millions of pounds, I think £6 million a day I think we're spending on it, and you just think, you know, I don't say don't, you know, obviously they've I mean, I would rather we didn't have to do that at all, but, you know, find some money to help people in this country who are already suffering.
No, I agree.
Right?
And listen, this is literally, the money's already there. If you look at London in particular, I think it's £5 million a day on temporary accommodation. That's not just migrants, that's 130,000 families that are in temporary accommodation today. And at the moment, the government has already spent close to £1 billion in just over 12 months. So there's 10% of that, and it's sticking plaster methods, whether that be increases to discretionary housing payments or making sure there's shelters during cold winter months. We need to be looking more long term, and the proof's in the pudding really with this sort of stuff. Worth noting as well, these developers that haven't wanted to build houses, if we had net zero migration since 2010, we'd still need 2 million houses. That's how bad it is. So if you have that increased pressure from immigration as well, it's even worse, obviously. But we need houses in this country.
We do, absolutely. Apparently, I'm being told off. We're running late, terribly late. Matthew, sorry. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. It's a great cause. Senior Fellow at Centre for Social Justice. Check it out. More houses for the homeless, less houses for the bleeding migrants. Thank you. This is Talk. Hello, Jezza.
You all right?
I'm good.
You
what are you
had your
doing?
drink?
I've had my drink.
Well, I've been running around.
I'm ready now.
I'm sure you are.
Should we start the show?
No, we can't. Saturday the 15th of November, here's a promise. You will not have seen anything like it. You will get honesty, you will get authenticity, and if we get our way, you might even be able to cram in at the top. 3-tier, World of Common Sense with Mike Graham.
And Jeremy Kyle.
In that order.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 9:58. I'm Mike Graham. The show is at an end, and I'm delighted to say I'm handing you over to the capable, very capable hands of Julie Hartley-Brewer.
You're always sounding a bit surprised by that.
Well,
like it's not a normal thing.
Well, I know, but you know what a joyous moment as well. If this peace deal is done,
please.
And well, you know, Donald Trump has said it, and I think he's right to say it. It's a moral victory.
Well, exactly. Look, it's only phase one that's been agreed. I
Yeah.
don't believe for a moment that Hamas are going